Chapter 670. Although Lu Wu possessed boundless strength, his every move capable of shattering mountains, at this moment, he was being toyed around in the palms of Wang Chong, Li Sai, and the Wang clan's little sister. Just choosing a target was enough to make Lu Wu waver. The vast majority of his energy wasted on this indecision. Haha, fun, really fun! Wang Xiaoyao roared with laughter, completely immersed in this game of toying with Lu Wu. As for Lu Wu's dangerous violet flames, they had little effect on a monster like her, who had always relied on her own divine power to win. Buzz! An endless stream of cold and tyrannical energy surged out of Lu Wu's body and poured into Wang Chong's body. Lu Wu roared, but every time his fist struck at Wang Chong, Li Sai would knock them down. As the energy in Lu Wu's body continued to decrease, the energy in Wang Chong's body continued to increase. In the end, not only did he break through his original cultivation level, he began to advance step by step toward Tier 2 and 3 of the Imperial Martial Realm. Most importantly, Wang Chong's Berserker Syndrome in the southwest had killed more than 10,000 people. But his strength had been too fierce and his growth too rapid, inflicting a certain amount of damage on his meridians, bones, and blood vessels. This was something that could not be avoided when one's strength increased too rapidly. Thus, when Wang Chong meditated and cultivated, his pores would ooze blood. But now, Wang Chong could clearly sense that after absorbing the cold energy of this humanoid monster, all the cells in his body were brimming with vitality. This rich vitality was like the best medicine, healing and mending the wounds in Wang Chong's body. This was an unexpected harvest. Wonderful! A bright light flashed through Wang Chong's eyes, and his entire body was invigorated. As long as he maintained this state, he might be able to absorb all the strange energy in this monster's body. Although he didn't know where this energy had come from, there was one thing that Wang Chong could be sure of. This energy was extremely useful in suppressing the side effects of the Berserker Syndrome. Young master, be careful, this monster's scales can regenerate. Suddenly, Li Sai's eyes flitted over a small black dot on Lu Wu's neck. His eyes widened and he cried out, "Don't panic. Think of a way to suppress him first." Wang Chong's voice was incomparably calm, with a convincing force. His perception was even sharper than Li Sai's. Lu Wu's flesh was inconceivably tough. When Wang Chong's finger stabbed into Lu Wu's neck, he could already feel the layers of strength pushing his finger outward. Moreover, the hard and fine feeling that came from under his fingers was clearly the fine scales on his body. If it weren't for the fact that these scales were impervious to swords and spears, and were so hard that even Wuxia steel couldn't do anything to them, and they grew very slowly, perhaps Wang Chong's little yin-yang technique would have been rendered useless by now. "Little sister." In the next moment, Wang Chong spoke without the slightest hesitation. Swish! Wang Xiaoyao soared into the sky, and in the blink of an eye, another scale fell from Wang Xiaoyao's godly strength. Soon, that icy and chilling energy surged forth once more. Repeating this process, Wang Chong's plan gradually began to show results. Wang Chong's energy was getting stronger and stronger. In contrast, Lu Wu's energy, which had been constantly growing, began to stagnate under the effects of the little yin-yang technique, and his strength even began to decline. Swish! In a flash of light, Wang Chong pulled out the Wuxia steel dagger from his waist and thrust it forward. However, it only managed to insert a little bit before it got stuck. What a tough flesh! Wang Chong was also alarmed. After fighting for so long and encountering so many opponents, this was the only monster that not even the sharp Wuxia steel dagger could do anything to. Under the layer of fine scales, it didn't look like normal flesh and blood. Instead, it looked like thick steel bars. As far as Wang Chong could remember, he had never encountered such a strange opponent. The wound is still too small. I can't stab it in. As he looked at those tiny wounds, Wang Chong's mind began to run wild. Wang Chong's Wuxia steel dagger was thin enough, but it was still not enough. The 2-inch wide dagger was still too big for the tiny wounds on Lu Wu's neck. Even its ears have fine scales. As his gaze flitted past Lu Wu's ears, Wang Chong could clearly see that several large black scales had completely covered them. The black scales extended from his ears all the way into his ears. It was clearly not very practical to attack from here. I have to think of a way to kill him as quickly as possible. Otherwise, Li Sai won't be able to hold on much longer. Wang Chong quietly said to himself. Li Sai had not yet matured into the invincible great general he would become in the future. After fighting for so long, the stellar energy in his body had been burned away by the violet flames, and it was clear that he was barely holding on. Wang Chong's gaze quickly shifted to Lu Wu's eyes. These were Lu Wu's greatest weakness, and if he wanted to kill this monster, his eyes were the best place to start. But when Wang Chong's gaze fell on Lu Wu's eyes, he instantly paled. Lu Wu's scarlet eyes were now blazing with a bloody light, so bright that blood was dripping from them. His entire eye sockets were red, brimming with endless violence and a desire to destroy. At the same time, Wang Chong heard the rapid sound of bones growing. Cack-lack. Lu Wu, who was already 7 meters tall, seemed to be driven by some invisible energy, and his already massive body began to swell. Not only that, many keratinized objects, as hard as steel, began to grow out of his massive body. Lu Wu's human form was also completely transformed by the growth of these keratinized things. A frightening transformation. Not good. Li Sai, little sister, get out of the way. An intense sense of danger welled up in Wang Chong's heart, and he immediately shot backward. The moment he shot forward, a massive horned hammer whistled through the air and smashed into his neck. Although the hammer had struck empty air, the enormous force caused the earth to shudder. A massive roar soared into the sky, and with Lu Wu at the center, a destructive violet stellar energy swept across the battlefield. Hong hong hong. Wherever the purple flame gang chi passed, all of the plum blossom trees were razed to the ground. Even the cloth used to block one's line of sight was burned to ashes by the purple flames. Wang Xiaoyao gasped as she was sent flying by the edge of the violet stellar energy. On the other side, Li Sai grunted as he was struck by the edge of the wave. Boom! He crashed into a ruined wall, and his face instantly turned as white as paper. Too powerful. The two of them rejoiced. If not for Wang Chong's timely warning, they would have been struck head-on, and their injuries wouldn't have been so minor. What's that? Wang Xiaoyao suddenly screamed in fear. After being sent flying, she crawled up from the ground and saw the scene behind her. Her eyes went wide, and her face contorted in fear. The plum tree forest was now covered in thick smoke. The 7-meter-tall Lu Wu had vanished, replaced by a massive monster, its body covered in jagged and sharp horns. At the same time, it had a long horn-like tail. This monster had 4 claws on the ground, and its eyes were scarlet. Just by standing there, it was 3 meters tall. And its length, if one included its tail, it was more than 5 meters long. Anyone who stood in front of this monster would feel a great fear. Although Wang Xiaoyao possessed peerless strength, she was still just a little girl of 8 or 9. When she saw this nightmarish monster, she couldn't help but feel a tinge of fear. A human turning into a monster. Just what is this thing? At this moment, the only person who was still clear-headed was Wang Chong. He had personally witnessed all the changes that had taken place during the monster's birth. Just a moment ago he was still a 7-meter-tall humanoid monster. But in the next moment, his body expanded, and he turned into this terrifying monster that didn't look human. This was also the first time in Wang Chong's life that he had seen a living person transform into a true monster. This had already surpassed Wang Chong's understanding of the martial path, and it was impossible to use common sense to explain it. Roar! The massive monster opened its mouth, and suddenly spat out a thick pillar of violet fire at Li Sai some zhang away. Boom! The roiling flames set even the earth ablaze. Li Sai leaped with all his might and dodged the flames by a hair's breadth. Boom! The earth quaked as Lu Wu's massive monster landed on all fours and leaped forward, suddenly lunging at Li Sai some zhang away. Not good. Li Sai paled. His internal energy had already been consumed by the violet flames, and he had no strength left to dodge the monster's attack. Just when it seemed like Li Sai was about to die under the monster's feet, a dragon's roar resounded through the air. In a flash of cold light, Li Sai, who was one with his sword, plummeted from the sky and slammed into the monster's head. Bang! Sparks flew, and a massive wave of energy exploded from the point of impact between Wang Chong's sword and the monster's head. Unsurprisingly, the monster-transformed Lu Wu's defense had become even more formidable, and Wang Chong's woozy steel sword was still unable to do anything to it. Beast this way! Wang Chong shot away from the monster's head, his feet lightly tapping the ground as he shot into the distance. In the blink of an eye, he had vanished to the southwest. Behind him, the huge demonic beast roared and quickly chased after him. Boom! A few moments later, waves of energy exploded in all directions, and the earth to the southwest shook with a heaven-shaking boom. Under Wang Chong's guidance, the monster-transformed Lu Wu shot forward like a streak of light, crashing into the high walls of the southwest. The walls of the Wang clan that were several zhang high were torn apart like paper by Lu Wu's charge, and Lu Wu continued to ram his head against the black shroud. Chapter 671. What's that? How could there be something like that? No wonder we couldn't get out. But who wants to deal with our Wang clan? They're too bold. Everyone was shocked, and they were both shocked and angry. But for the black-robed men outside the walls, it was not as simple as shock. Bang bang bang. The black-robed men lost their footing, vomiting blood as they dropped from the roofs. Bastard! This foul brat is using Lu Wu to deal with us. On the roof, the black-robed men were both shocked and furious. The black shroud formed by the formation was powered by the stellar energy in their bodies. All of them were part of the formation. By using Lu Wu to crash into the shroud, Wang Chong was driving the tiger to swallow the wolf, indirectly using Lu Wu's strength to deal with them. If not for the fact that Wang Chong was still trapped in the shroud, all of them would have been infuriated to death. But this was far from the end. Rumble. In the blink of an eye, there was another massive boom. The monstrous Lu Wu, who had just vanished, had been lured back by Wang Chong, and once more slammed into the black barrier of the formation. 5 or 6 black-robed men seemed to have been struck by lightning, vomiting blood as they dropped from the roofs. Lu Wu's strength was inconceivably vast, and no one could stop him. Thus, Wang Chong had never even thought about stopping him, only luring him over to deal with them. This was yet another situation that none of them had ever imagined. Leader, if this continues, it might turn into a battle between us and Lu Wu. Before that brat dies, all of us will die. Can you control Lu Wu, so that he doesn't crash into our barrier? One of the black-robed leaders stood up and anxiously turned to look at the black-robed leader on the other roof. No, that brat is too crafty. The black-robed leader clenched his teeth, his expression more furious than anyone else's. He's been controlling where and when Lu Wu will appear. By the time I want to control him, Lu Wu is already gone. There's too little time, not enough. Damn bastard. Controlling Lu Wu required time, a very short amount of time. In normal circumstances, this would not be a problem. But after Lu Wu transformed, his strength and speed had greatly increased, and when Wang Chong wanted to control him, he simply did not have enough time to do so. Moreover, the place where Wang Chong had lured Lu Wu to appear was constantly changing, making it impossible to predict. By the time he noticed, it was already too late. The most hateful thing was that Wang Chong was still instructing the guards of the Wang family to cover the gap with large pieces of cloth, so that their vision was always limited. I'll kill him. The leader of the black-robed men gritted his teeth. A sense of powerlessness that he had never felt before surged in his heart. Lu Wu's attacks had always resulted in death, and this situation had never happened before. He had an indescribable feeling. It was like Lu Wu had become that boy's, and his group had become Lu Wu's target. Boom! Just as he was deep in thought, the black light barrier trembled, and another deafening sound rang out. On the roof, several more black-robed men vomited blood and dropped to the ground. After losing several batches of black-robed men, the power of the formation grew weaker and weaker, and even the black light barrier dimmed. Compared to the beginning, the light barrier now clearly showed signs of dimming. Leader, what do we do? Everyone was getting more and more anxious. Wait a little longer. Once Lu Wu transforms, he'll get stronger and faster. I don't believe that he can keep it under control forever. The leader of the black-robed men was even more anxious than the others, but his voice did not betray any of this. At this stage of the battle, they had no other choice. Once they opened the barrier, and allowed their target to escape, all their previous efforts would have been for naught. In comparison, if Lu Wu could kill his target, the deaths of these people would be insignificant. At this moment, no one within the walls knew that Wang Cheng's situation was far more dangerous than they had imagined. Awa! Lu Wu bellowed, unleashing a torrent of violet flames at Wang Cheng. The slightest contact with these flames would result in the melting of one's bones and blood. Along with the torrent of violet flames was the long-horn hammer at the end of Lu Wu's tail. Bum bum bum. Each blow of Lu Wu's horn hammer was incredibly heavy, and when it struck the ground, it would leave behind a large hole in the ground. Under the assault of Lu Wu's violet flames, tail, and sharp claws, Wang Cheng was constantly dodging and fleeing. Countless times, Lu Wu's violet flames and tail shot past Wang Cheng's feet, and there were many times when Wang Cheng was almost struck by Lu Wu. This was like dancing on a tightrope. Death followed him like a shadow, and the slightest carelessness would result in death. Bum bum bum. Under Wang Cheng's guidance, Lu Wu smashed into the black shroud again and again. In the eyes of outsiders, Wang Cheng seemed to be able to lift this heavy burden effortlessly, but only Wang Cheng himself knew how dangerous it was. Everyone scatter. Don't get close. Wei Guo Wei Wu. Quickly use silk to cover the gap. In addition, have everyone else stay away. Wang Cheng's voice resounded over the Wang clan residence. Shen Hai and Ming Long had already been dispatched by Wang Cheng to Jiaoji to protect Zhang Munian. The current leaders of the Wang clan guards were Wei Guo and Wei Wu. Third brother, I'll help you. Wang Xiaoyao ran all the way here. Little sister, don't. Hurry and leave. Wang Cheng paled in fright. His little sister had always had a rash personality, but now was not the time to be willful. This monster's strength had increased by several times, and not even Wang Cheng dared to lightly touch it. But how could Wang Xiaoyao listen to Wang Cheng? Just as she was about to run over, Xiaoyao, stop right there. A harsh voice came from behind her. Madame Wang's words caused Wang Xiaoyao's body to tremble, and she finally stopped. Bum bum bum. Lu Wu's speed was clearly increasing, and he was becoming more and more dangerous. But Wang Cheng had no time to worry about that. No one in the Wang clan could deal with this monster, and luring it toward the black shroud was the only method. Once, twice, thrice, Wang Cheng was in a perilous situation, and Lu Wu was also successfully smashing into the black shroud. The greater Lu Wu's strength, the greater the impact on the black-robed men outside the walls. Plush. The black-robed men vomited blood as they dropped from the roof. The force of Lu Wu's charge had been successfully transferred to them by Wang Cheng. As he watched the corpses drop from the roof, the black-robed leader's complexion became even uglier than a corpse's. A simple late-night assassination, under Wang Cheng's bait, had now become a bizarre race against time. The black shroud was the dividing line, with Wang Cheng inside and the black-robed men outside, as the participants on the outside. The one who could persist the longest would be the final victor. Bum bum bum. For a moment, both inside and outside the black shroud fell into a strange silence. All that was left was the black shroud shuddering in the dark night. Once, twice, thrice, after some time, there was a massive boom as the black shroud melted. Plush. The black-robed men vomited blood as they dropped from the roof. All the black-robed men turned ashen. They had spent so much time and paid such a heavy price. But in the end, Wang Cheng had used Lu Wu to shatter their defenses. But this was not the end of it. Leader, it's bad. The city guards and imperial army are on their way. A black-robed man exclaimed. The shattering of the black light barrier had caused a huge shockwave that had awakened many people. In an important place like the capital, the slightest disturbance would attract the attention of the city guards and imperial army, let alone such a loud noise. Woof woof woof. The sound of dogs barking could be heard in the dark night. Near and far, the lights of the houses were lit up. The families heard the commotion and got up from their beds in the dark. Who? Can't you let me sleep in the middle of the night? Why is there such a big commotion? Could something have happened? Hearing these voices, the black-robed leader's expression became extremely unsightly. As far as the eye could see, even the nearby area was lit up. Through the window, he could see figures moving about inside. as if someone was preparing to put on their clothes and come out to check. At this rate, it wouldn't be long before they were completely exposed. "Leader, what should we do?" An anxious, urging voice rang in his ears again. Wait a little longer. I can already control Lu Wu." The black-robed leader gritted his teeth. "But we're running out of time. The city guards and imperial guards have already rushed over," a black-robed man said. No matter what, they could not attract too much attention in the capital. This was the most basic principle of their operations. If they were exposed, all of them would die. This was why when they assassinated someone, they had to be stealthy, and even set up a black light barrier array formation barrier. There wasn't much time left. The black-robed man said nothing, his eyes shifting. He wanted to delay a little longer, so that he could control Lu Wu to kill Wang Chong. But Wang Chong had clearly predicted this move. The moment the barrier disappeared, Wang Chong had already retreated back into the Wang family residence. Moreover, the entire Wang family residence had been covered in silks and satin, limiting one's vision. Killing Wang Chong was not something that could be accomplished in a short amount of time, at least not before the city guards and imperial army arrived. "Leader," the black-robed man urged once more. "Damn it. Even if I can't kill that brat, I won't let the Wang family off easy." The black-robed leader clenched his teeth, his heart filled with unwillingness. "Let Lu Wu raze the Wang family residence to the ground. After half an incense stick's worth of time, we'll have him burrow into the ground and leave. Everyone else withdraw." Although he was extremely unwilling, the black-robed leader had no choice but to give the order to retreat. No matter what, concealment was always their number one principle. Swish. Chapter 672. These people have retreated. Wang Chong looked around him, a deep and gloomy look on his face. These people could use their eyes to control the monster. And Wang Chong had originally believed that they would use the monster to control him the moment the shroud broke. Thus, Wang Chong had ordered Wei Guo and Wei Wu to lay down many concealment silks and cloths in the residence. But to his surprise, the other side had managed to endure. These people are really cautious. They are not willing to leave any traces behind. Wang Chong quietly said to himself. He had already exchanged blows with these people several times. But even now, Wang Chong had not been able to touch the corner of their clothes, much less understand their background. They seemed to be extremely careful about concealing their identities and tracks, leaving no clues for outsiders to follow. "Young master, what do we do now?" A panicked voice came from the distance. Wei Guo stood on a wall, one hand gripping his bow, and the other gripping an arrow. Across from him, the monstrous beast Lu Wu was madly charging at him. Although the black-robed men outside had retreated, the Wang clan's troubles were far from over. Lu Wu was currently unstoppable, and anyone who touched him would die. Moreover, the Wang clan was surrounded by residences. If this monster was allowed to escape, the consequences would be unthinkable. Wang Chong's brow was tightly creased as he scanned the entire Wang clan. There was no one left who could stop this monster. His little sister could not go forward, and Li Sai's condition was extremely worrisome. Anyone else would be burned to ash by the monster's violet flames. Wang Chong could only think of a way to delay, but this was not a long-term solution. Most frightening of all was that the longer he delayed, the stronger the monster would become. Once its speed reached a certain level, the walls of the Wang clan would not be able to hold it. "Chonga, stand aside. Let me do it." Suddenly, an elderly but vigorous and domineering voice came from the sky, booming like a peal of thunder. There was a flash of light, and a black-colored figure swept through the void like a large bird, landing in the Wang family residence. Before anyone could react, that person left behind an afterimage. When he reappeared, he was already in front of Lu Wu. Compared to Lu Wu's massive body, this person's body was thin and frail, but in Wang Chong's eyes, he was as imposing and lofty as a mountain. "Master!" Wang Chong was overjoyed. He recognized the black figure as his master, the evil emperor. "Chonger, stand back. Leave this beast to me." The evil emperor simply waved his hand lightly, giving off a strong sense of confidence. That frail figure just stood there casually, but in an instant, It gave people a feeling as if his feet had taken root, as if he had fused with the earth, and was boundlessly heavy. Roar! The behemoth roared. It seemed to sense the aura of the old man, and suddenly turned around, its scarlet eyes glowing like two red lanterns in the darkness, as it stared at the evil emperor. Boom! The thick claws of the monster stomped on the ground, and the 3-meter-tall monster panted. Exerting all its strength, it shot forward like a cannonball toward the weak and insignificant demonic emperor old man. Before the monster could even lunge forward, it opened its mouth, and a thick pillar of violet flames surged toward the evil emperor. "Aya!" Cries of alarm came from all around, and even the distant Wang Chong couldn't help but feel his heart leap into his throat. If the violet flames that Lu Wu had spewed at the start were only capable of burning a person's energy, then not even Wang Chong dared to recklessly touch this dangerous pillar of violet flames. Boom! Before Wang Chong could warn him, the massive pillar of violet flames had already crashed into the body of the evil emperor. "Master!" Wang Chong and Wang Xiaoyao both tensed up and shouted at the same time. But a moment later, everyone was stunned by what they saw. That majestic and destructive pillar of violet flames crashed into the body of the evil emperor, like a waterfall crashing into a rocky mountain. It was instantly stopped by an invisible energy and cut into thousands of pieces. For the first time, the invincible violet flames of Lu Wu's demonic transformation were rendered useless before the evil emperor. "Beast! You still dare to act so impudently in front of me?" While his voice was still echoing over the Wang clan residence, the evil emperor had already extended a palm into the violet flames and grabbed one of Lu Wu's feet. Rumble! Dust roiled, and the earth seemed to be on the verge of splitting apart. As everyone stared in shock, the massive demonic beast Lu Wu was thrown to the ground by the evil emperor, his 4 feet in the air, and his vicious aura scattered. "Mas Fu!" Wang Chong was dumbfounded, and the Wang family's little sister was also standing not too far away from Madame Wang. Her eyes were wide open, and her jaw was about to drop to the ground. She had never seen the evil emperor fight, but Wang Chong was a little better off. He knew that although his master, the evil emperor, had lost all his martial arts, he was rapidly recovering, and had even cultivated the formidable myriad spirit sea art. But not even Wang Chong knew that his master, the evil emperor, had reached this level of martial arts. Not only was he not afraid of the violet flames, he was even able to throw the demonic beast to the ground with a light palm. This is too inconceivable. The most shocked of all were the guards of the Wang clan. They had seen with their own eyes how terrifying this monster was. But to be knocked down by the evil emperor in a single exchange was nothing like it had been before. Everyone was dumbstruck by this sight. "Awa!" The demonic beast Lu Wu howled, and shook its head as it got up from the ground, intending to attack the evil emperor. But a moment later, a thin and withered hand suddenly reached out and pressed against Lu Wu's head. Boom! The massive Lu Wu seemed to be struck by a heavy blow, its 4 thick legs falling apart as it crashed to the ground, leaving behind a deep crater. The invulnerable Lu Wu howled in pain at the palm of the evil emperor. "Chong'er, remember, humans have thousands of acupoints and so do beasts. Whether it's a man or a beast, no matter how formidable their martial arts are, no matter how tough and dense their scales are, it's impossible to conceal all the acupoints in their body, and each acupoint is a sea of energy." Wang Chong's eyes flashed with a solemn light. The evil emperor's powerful and domineering voice resounded in Wang Chong's ears, and the ferocity of the demonic beast was completely suppressed. The ferocious Lu Wu was just a docile kitten. And this is the essence of the myriad spirit sea art. You must learn to sense the acupuncture points of your opponent, and not just rely on the sword in your hand. Only in this way can you become a true expert. The evil emperor's right hand pressed down, and the 3-meter-tall demonic beast Lu Wu was smashed into the ground, its energy completely scattered. In the distance, Li Sai was leaning against a broken wall, panting for breath. He had long since been stunned by this sight. This was the first time he had seen the evil emperor in action. He had personally experienced the power of that monster. Even the invincible Wuxia steel sword was useless against him. But this invulnerability was completely useless against the evil emperor. With a single move, the evil emperor had heavily injured the demonic beast. Impossible! Li Sai was completely dumbfounded. He had been to the Spirit Vein Mountain more than once, and he had also seen the evil emperor. At the time, he had thought that this old man was weak and frail, not much of a threat. It was only at this moment that Li Sai realized that he had misjudged. He had never imagined that this ordinary-looking old man on the Spirit Vein Mountain would be so terrifying. No, it wasn't just simply terrifying. Wang Chong's shock was no less than Li Sai's, but he was still deep in thought. Spirit Sea, Wang Chong muttered to himself deep in thought. Whether it was the great Yin-Yang Heaven creation art, the myriad Spirit Sea art, or the art of God and Demon Slayer, these were the 10 supreme arts of the world that Wang Chong had never come into contact with before. And at his peak, the evil emperor was a legendary figure in terms of strength. If one were to say that after Wang Chong became the war sage, there were only a handful of people who were qualified to guide him and be his master, then the evil emperor was definitely one of them. The Spirit Sea art was definitely one of the most supreme arts. Every martial artist had a Spirit Sea, but to be able to use it as a supreme art, his master's myriad Spirit Sea art was definitely the only one. This supreme art was grand and majestic, and it had completely transcended the boundaries of the evil path. It was an orthodox martial art. Moreover, Wang Chong knew that his master, the evil emperor, was using this demonic beast to teach him. The black scales could cover one's vital points, but they could not cover one's chi acupoints, because chi acupoints were everywhere. Therefore, as long as one knew the location of one's opponent's chi acupoints, even if they were impervious to weapons, one could still attack them. This was clearly what his master was telling him. The myriad Spirit Sea art. I didn't expect it to be so powerful. Wang Chong muttered to himself as he looked at his master, the evil emperor in front of him. History had changed, and there could be no construction without destruction. The myriad Spirit Sea art had never appeared in the past several hundred years, so naturally, no one would have seen it before, much less know of its might. But there was no doubt that this was an extremely powerful supreme art. His master, the evil emperor, had only used a little bit of skill to subdue it. Awa. Chapter 673. Not good. That scoundrel's trying to escape. Wang Chong was also alarmed. In all his battles with Lu Wu, he had never known that this creature could burrow into the ground like a pangolin. Whoosh! Wang Chong immediately charged in the direction that Lu Wu was burrowing into. But before he could take more than a few steps, Wang Chong heard a vigorous voice at his ear. Do you think you can escape from me? Rumble. The evil emperor stood with his back to Wang Chong, his black robe flapping in the wind as he faced the cloud of dust and the fleeing Lu Wu. On the contrary, a chilling and tyrannical energy erupted from his body, causing the air in a radius of 30 zhang around him to distort. Bang! With a stomp of his foot, the earth began to sway like the deck of a ship in the middle of the ocean. The evil emperor's body suddenly began to exude a dazzling white light that could shake the heavens. All this white light condensed into a stream of light that flowed through the demonic emperor old man's right foot and surged into the depths of the earth. It was like a boulder had been thrown into a lake, causing the earth to quake and the sea to churn. Awa! An agonized howl came from the depths of the earth. Even the servants and maids of the Wang clan, who did not know martial arts, had brightened their eyes, knowing that the behemoth had been heavily injured. Come out for me! The evil emperor's cold and harsh voice was neither loud nor soft, but it was imbued with a pressure that resounded in everyone's ears. Rumble! Under everyone's gazes, a large area of the ground split open. It was as if an invisible hand the size of a mountain had drilled out from the depths of the earth. Kacha! In front of everyone's eyes, the earth cracked and bulged, quickly rising up to a height of 60 to 70 feet. And in the center of the cracked earth, a monster that was more than 30 feet tall, with a bumpy surface and keratinized skin appeared in front of everyone. Its acupoints shone with white light. Those milky white rays of light were like chains, drilling out of Lu Wu's acupoints and crisscrossing, locking down Lu Wu's entire body, and making it impossible for him to move. Chonga, it's your turn now. The evil emperor's pitch-black hair danced in the wind. His voice was cold and calm, and it was filled with a strange power. Now, I will teach you the mnemonic of the great yin-yang heaven creation art. Reverse the universe, reverse the flow of blood, direct the flow of qi, reverse the flow of heroic si. This monster's energy is extremely rich in vitality. This will be extremely beneficial to your cultivation of the great yin-yang heaven creation art and the berserker syndrome. Quick, go and absorb his energy. At the last sentence, the evil emperor's expression was unquestionable. Bang! With a flash of light, Wang Chong, who was already not far behind the evil emperor, leaped into the air without any hesitation. Bzzz. Head down and feet up, Wang Chong's thumb stabbed into a bloody wound on Lu Wu's body. This was a wound Lu Wu had sustained in his battle with the evil emperor. This wound is too small. Let me help you out a little more. The evil emperor's calm and composed voice came from his ear. Swish! The thumb-sized wound suddenly tore open, expanding to the size of a fist. The massive Lu Wu howled in pain, faint violet blood gushing out. Now that the demonic emperor old man had taken control of its acupoints, its skin, which was even more formidable than its black scales, could only helplessly await death in the face of the myriad spirit sea art. Rumble! Visible streams of icy and chilling violet energy began to flow through Wang Chong's palm, condensing into a viscous liquid. Once Wang Chong reached the peak of the little yin-yang art, he could use the great yin-yang heaven creation art mantra that his master, the evil emperor, had taught him to reverse his blood energy, instantly unleashing an inconceivable amount of power. The frigid energy in Lu Wu's body madly surged into Wang Chong's body at a speed several dozen times faster than before. Awa! Lu Wu's howls could be heard from very far away in the capital. It struggled with all its might, but under the effect of the evil emperor's energy-sealing acupuncture points, its struggles were futile. Damn it, just who are these people? Can not even Lu Wu escape? How could this damn Wang clan be so powerful? Just how many more tricks do they have up their sleeves? The black-robed men, who had already fled far away, heard Lu Wu's screams in the darkness and felt their bodies turn cold. In its monster form, Lu Wu was invulnerable and inconceivably powerful. On the battlefield, a single Lu Wu could easily destroy an entire army of 10,000 soldiers. Moreover, Lu Wu could burrow into the ground, giving it an invincible position. But now, the black-robed men couldn't help but shiver at this thought. For a moment, they even wanted to turn around and run back to see just what sort of person was capable of trapping Lu Wu. But very quickly reason stopped them from acting rashly. The imperial army and city guards were already on their way, the clopping of hooves echoing through the night sky. Whether they wanted to or not, they could not appear in that place again. In the Wang clan residence, Wang Chong stood upside down, the cold and frigid energy of Lu Wu surging into his body. Caklack! Too much cold energy had accumulated, and in a few seconds, layers of blue ice began to emerge from under Wang Chong's skin. And where Lu Wu had touched his wrist, a thick layer of blue ice began to spread from Wang Chong's arms to his entire body. In a flash, Wang Chong's face began to pale. His body even began to tremble from the cold. Lu Wu's energy was simply too high, far above Wang Chong's current level, and beyond what he could endure. Focus the mind and calm the energy, become one with the mind. Return to the origin, past the orifice, gushing spring, chest center, startling rainbow, all in one. The great yin-yang heaven creation art has been passed down through the ages and possesses peerless power. In this world, there is no energy or stellar energy that cannot be absorbed. Just when Wang Chong's entire body was about to freeze, a voice rang out in his ear. The evil emperor's robes fluttered in the wind, his expression domineering and confident. As the wielder of the great yin-yang heaven creation art, the sect master, the #1 figure of the evil path, the evil emperor naturally had the confidence and authority to speak these words. The sea can hold all rivers and tolerance is great. In this world, there was no energy that the great yin-yang heaven creation art could not absorb. Wang Chong had been frozen because he had not yet grasped the essence of the world's #1 evil art, so he had not been able to fully utilize its power. Buzz! The words of his master, the evil emperor, caused Wang Chong to suddenly realize what was going on. A moment later, a tyrannical stream of energy surged through these acupuncture points. With a massive boom, Wang Chong's body seemed to shatter like a frozen mountain. Thousands of ships began to rush through his body, and an enormous suction force began to emerge. The thick layer of blue ice wrapped around Wang Chong's body began to melt at a visible rate. Whoosh! A vast river of energy flowed through Wang Chong's meridians. After making a full cycle, it was like a dragon returning to the sea, gathering at his dantian. Wang Chong's energy swelled, rising from Tier 2 to Tier 3, all the way to Tier 4 and Tier 5. Lu Wu's energy was simply too powerful. To Wang Chong, this energy was extremely nourishing, equivalent to the energy of several top-class experts. Gallop! Gallop! The clopping of hooves came from outside, accompanied by the clamor of voices. But soon after, another wave of people arrived. The clattering of hooves came to a sudden halt in front of the gate of the Wang clan residence. "We are the city guards. We heard the commotion and came to provide reinforcements. This is the Imperial Army. What's going on? Let us go in and take a look." A cacophony of voices could be heard. In the ruins, Li Sai's eyes flickered. His muscular right hand pushed against the rubble and rumbled as he stood up. "Young master is currently cultivating and cannot be disturbed. In addition, the origins of this monster are too complicated. Until we get to the bottom of it, it's best not to let too many people know." As this thought flitted through Li Sai's mind, he quickly propped himself up and began to walk toward the gate of the Wang clan residence. As he walked, he gestured. On the other side, Wei Guo and Wei Wu had already ordered their men to cover up the gap in the collapsed walls of the Wang clan residence. At the same time, they had also sent men to stand guard. Too much had happened on this night. More than half of the Wang clan residents had been destroyed. What to do next would have to wait for Wang Chong to decide. The city guards and Imperial Army guards outside the gate were quickly replaced by Li Sai. In the residence, Wang Chong had reached a crucial moment in absorbing Lu Wu's energy. Wave after wave of energy was constantly nourishing Wang Chong's body, healing the hidden injuries he had sustained during the battle. Caklack! In just a few seconds, Wang Chong's energy had soared to Tier 7 of the Imperial Martial Realm, and a powerful energy began to explode from his body. Wang Chong was already beginning to show some of the majesty of his last life. Whoosh! As Wang Chong was concentrating on using Lu Wu's energy to cultivate the great Yin-Yang Heaven creation art, a violet flame suddenly erupted from Lu Wu's body. This violet flame was extremely fierce and domineering, of the kind that was tinged with black. The enormous Lu Wu was instantly set ablaze from the inside out. Not good! Wang Chong was also alarmed. Icy energy surged out of his body, and he immediately tried to extinguish the flames on Lu Wu's body and freeze it. But it was too late. This flame was extremely fast and tyrannical. In the blink of an eye, this 3-meter-tall horned behemoth was burned to ash by the violet-black flames. All that was left was a large black scorch mark on its body. Damn it! Wang Chong leaped up and rolled to the side, his face grimacing as he stared at the place where Lu Wu had vanished. This monster was extremely strange. It could take human form and also beast form. This was not something that any human faction could do. Moreover, the level of energy in its body far exceeded that of an ordinary martial artist. This creature definitely harbored some enormous secret. If he could successfully capture it, he might be able to deduce the origins of those mysterious people. Chapter 674. Chonga, there's no need to worry too much. There's an energy core in his body, and all his energy comes from that core. From the moment you absorbed his energy, the energy core in his body lost balance and was destined to disappear. All of this was inevitable. The evil emperor waved his sleeve and placed his hands behind his back. His expression relaxed. His myriad spirit sea art was connected to every acupoint in Lu Wu's body, so none of Lu Wu's secrets could be hidden from him. Wang Chong might have been very disappointed, but the evil emperor had long ago predicted all of this. Chonga, what's going on here? Those who could control this kind of monster were not ordinary forces. Just how did you provoke such a formidable opponent? The evil emperor turned to Wang Chong said, Master, your disciple truly cannot answer this question. Wang Chong bitterly smiled. In truth, he wanted to know the answer more than anyone else. These men in black seemed to have appeared out of thin air. They did not exist in his memories, nor did they belong to any faction. Even now, Wang Chong had no idea where they came from, who they were, or what they wanted. All the information he had on them was a complete blank. The demonic emperor old man glanced at the nearby devastated Wang family residence and subconsciously furrowed his brow. It was clear that Wang Chong's answer was not the one he had been hoping for. That's right, Master. How did Venerable One manage to rush over at a time like this? Wang Chong said. After transforming into a monster, this monster's strength had soared, and not even the Wuxia steel sword had been able to do anything to him. If not for the evil emperor's timely arrival, Wang Chong truly didn't dare to believe that this monster would have wreaked so much havoc in the capital. At the very least, the ordinary people around the Wang clan residence would have suffered grievous casualties. Haha, don't forget that I was the one who taught you the little yin-yang art. I'm more sensitive to the energy of the little yin-yang art than any of you. When your aura suddenly disappeared from my perception, I already felt that something was wrong. The myriad chi seas are one with the world. Even though they are separated by dozens of miles, there is nothing that can hide from me. At that time, I knew that something had changed. The evil emperor said calmly. This was the first time he had taken the initiative to talk about his myriad spirit sea technique. Although it was only a glimpse, the evil emperor's casual display of it was already quite stunning. To be able to sense the movements in the distance from dozens of miles away, the power of this myriad spirit sea art had already surpassed the scope of normal martial arts. When Wang Chong heard his master's words, he couldn't help but reveal a trace of surprise. Although Wang Chong did not understand what his master meant when he said that the myriad of chi seas were in harmony with the heavens and the earth, there was one thing that he could be sure of. His master's power had really recovered. Even if it had not yet reached the level that could shock the world, it had definitely reached an extremely high level. Congratulations, Master, on recovering your divine power, Wang Chong said happily. Haha, it's still too early to talk about recovering my divine power. But I truly did recover a significant amount of my strength. I have to thank you for all of this. That spirit vein mountain is filled with dense spiritual energy, making it the best place to cultivate the myriad spirit sea art. If you had not brought me to that spirit vein, it would have taken me at least 5 more years to reach my current level. The evil emperor looked at his disciple with a gratified expression. He had spent his entire life scheming and scheming against each other, scheming against others, and even being schemed against by his own disciple. To be able to obtain a disciple like Wang Chong in his later years was the most gratifying thing that had ever happened to the evil emperor. Wang Chong had not only made a name for himself in the southwest and been bestowed the title of young marquis by the imperial court, he had also been extremely loyal and filial to the evil emperor. This was something that the evil emperor had never felt from any of his disciples before. Without destruction, there can be no construction. To the evil emperor, this was not just a matter of martial arts, but also a complete transformation of his personality and breadth of mind. At this point, if anyone dared to harm Wang Chong, the demonic emperor old man would have to travel to the ends of the earth to grind them to ashes and exterminate them. These 2 disciples of the Wang brothers, one big and one small, could be said to be his greatest hope in his later years. All of this is due to Master's own efforts. Your disciple is just the icing on the cake, Wang Chong sincerely said. To Wang Chong, he had only sought out the evil emperor for the great yin-yang heaven creation art. But now, Wang Chong had unwittingly begun to view the evil emperor as a family member, not just a simple master. Moreover, after experiencing so many changes, Wang Chong could sense that his master's entire personality had changed. From a demon of the evil path, he was slowly turning over a new leaf, becoming a calm and benevolent old man whose heart was as tolerant as the rivers and lakes. Haha, there's no need for you to be so humble in front of your master. The evil emperor smiled and shook his head. Other than investigating the truth, your master's main purpose in coming here is to pass on the great Inyang heaven creation art to you. Your little Inyang art is already close to perfection, so you should be able to cultivate this supreme art. This will also alleviate the rampaging blood in your body. But, at this point, the evil emperor looked at Wang Chong and gave a deep sigh, a deep worry flitting across his brow. Even now, not even I know if passing on this supreme art to you is a good or bad thing. In the end, the great Inyang heaven creation art is an evil art, an evil art. I have cultivated for more than half my life, and have already suffered deeply from it. In the future, your menstrual blood will flow in reverse, and you will pay an enormous price. Master, there's no need to worry. This is all your disciple's own choice. I already know the consequences. Wang Chong gave an indifferent smile, not worried in the slightest. He knew what his master was thinking, but even if he could do it all over again, he would still choose the great Inyang heaven creation art, because he had a reason to do so. As for the others, he didn't care. The demonic emperor old man gave a long sigh. I have spent more than half my life trying to resolve the conflict with the great Inyang heaven creation art. Right now, I can only hope that you can find the legendary supreme and infinite origin immortal art before your blood flows like lava and your internal energy suffers a backlash. The supreme and infinite origin immortal art was a fusion of yin and yang. If one could learn this legendary first of the 10 supreme arts of the world, the flaws of the great Inyang heaven creation art would be completely removed. But even until now, no one knew where this legendary and unparalleled martial art was. This legendary supreme art had been lost in the long river of history for far, far too long. Master, internal energy backlash is a matter of the future. As long as it's not a matter of the present, why should I think too much about it? Wang Chong grinned. In contrast to his master, the evil emperor, Wang Chong maintained a relaxed and carefree attitude. It was as if what the evil emperor had said had happened to someone else, and had nothing to do with him. The evil emperor shook his head and sighed, not wanting to say anything more. I have already passed the great Inyang heaven creation art to you, so it's time for me to leave. If you need anything, come find me at the spirit vein. With a shake of his robe, the evil emperor left the Wang family residence. Wait a moment. Wang Chong suddenly called out to the evil emperor. Master, there's one more thing that I need your help with. The evil emperor's footsteps faltered, and he abruptly stopped. Time passed slowly, and the city guards and imperial army were successfully persuaded to leave by Li Sai. But even so, the Wang family's actions still attracted a lot of attention in the capital. After all, many people had heard the angry roar last night. But this matter was quickly suppressed by Wang Chong and the Wang family. The collapsed walls were quickly repaired to prevent others from peeking inside. The news that the Wang family released to the public was that Wang Chong had been conferred a marquis, and Wang Chong's mother, Madame Wang, was preparing to rebuild the entire Wang family residence to celebrate. Although many people still found it strange, and it wasn't completely convincing, at least it was a plausible explanation. Thus, not many people paid attention to it anymore. Moreover, the next day, the Wang family indeed called over many carpenters and sent over a lot of high-quality wood, so no one doubted it anymore. At night, a single lantern shone in Wang Chong's study. Wang Chong's study had been one of the few buildings that had not been affected by last night's battle. You were the one who called my master over? Wang Chong said. Standing across from him was a faceless man wearing a black metal mask, only his 2 eyes exposed. This man was silently standing there motionless. Although his master, the evil emperor, had not said anything during the day, his actions had already told Wang Chong the answer. His master's myriad spirit sea art truly had sensed the abnormalities in the capital, and he had also sensed the disappearance of his and his little sister's auras. But this was not the primary reason he had been able to rush over. The primary reason was that someone had gone to the spirit vein to find him. Zhang Wentua, the faceless man standing before him. After returning from the southwest, the faceless man had not entered the Wang clan residence, and Wang Chong had not restrained his movements. Of all the people present, He was the only one that the black-robed men had not paid attention to, and he was also the only one that had not been imprisoned in the black shroud. Yes. The faceless man nodded, his voice crisp and decisive. After returning from the southwest, I knew that they would make a new move. Everything has confirmed my conjecture. Young master, you've already become their must-kill target. I know. Wang Chong indifferently nodded. To be able to mobilize such a monster to deal with him, those people were clearly determined. If there's nothing unexpected, that giant bell on the street was probably their handiwork. As for the assassination attempt, it wasn't. You were in the vicinity at the time. Did you see anything? I only saw a black silhouette in the sky. It was too fast for me to see it clearly. The faceless man shook his head. These people are too secretive. They wouldn't give you any chance to find any clues. In addition, although I noticed them last night, they had too many people and were too strong. Even if I appeared, I wouldn't have been able to change anything. If I was too impulsive, it would just be one more person dying. You were right to do so. Wang Chong nodded. Although the black-robed men had only targeted him, in those circumstances, the faceless man's decision was undoubtedly correct and rational. So, you've discovered their tracks? The faceless man expressionlessly nodded. This simple action instantly caused the mood in the study to change. In the lamplight, Wang Chong's lips curled into a smile. Chapter 675. In the southern part of the city, by the Yuan River, a massive estate stood row upon row. This estate was even larger than the estates of many nobles and ministers. This was the estate of philanthropist Yang of the southern part of the city. The common people of the southern part of the city all knew that philanthropist Yang was a famous wealthy family in the southern part of the city. He was involved in many businesses: iron mines, slaughterhouses, jewelry, tea leaves. He had accumulated a great deal of wealth, but he was also an extremely benevolent and charitable person. He would often open a porridge stall and give alms to the beggars and poor families of the city. He would also often generously waive the rent of those tenant farmers who were in dire straits. Thus, philanthropist Yang had an extremely high reputation in the southern part of the city. But at this moment, no one knew that philanthropist Yang's estate was covered in corpses. Maids, and servants were sprawled all over the place. And on top of these corpses, a group of black-robed men had gathered. Damn it! It's already been a day. Why hasn't Lu Wu returned yet? Could Lu Wu really have been killed? Impossible. Lu Wu is invulnerable and has a formidable regenerative ability. Just who could have killed him? Has there been any news from the people we sent to investigate? No. The Wang clan's estate is heavily guarded. It's impossible for us to get close. A group of black-robed men paced back and forth in the hall, all of them seemingly restless. Lu Wu had disappeared. Not even if they were beaten to death would they dare to believe that such a thing could happen. Leader, if the higher-ups find out that we lost Lu Wu, all of us will be killed. A short black-robed man, only around 1.5 meters tall, fearfully said. What are you afraid of? Don't we still not know? The black-robed leader, wearing the demon mask, said impatiently. No one could have killed Lu Wu, absolutely no one. Hurry and send someone to take a look. I want to know what happened after we left. If you want to know what happened, I'll tell you. The candlelight in the hall flickered. Suddenly, a young and handsome voice came from outside. This voice instantly caused the hall to fall into an uproar. Who goes there? With a loud shout, everyone looked towards the door. Several black-robed men didn't even think, and immediately flew towards the door. However, before they could fly over, with a crash, the door collapsed, and a black-robed man's corpse was thrown in from the outside like a stone. With a bang, it smashed on the ground in the middle of the hall. It's been a long time. Outside the door, Wang Chong was wearing a purple cloak. His face was full of smiles as he stepped over the threshold and walked in. It's you. Seeing Wang Chong, the expressions of all the black-robed men in the hall changed. But as soon as they spoke, they immediately felt that something was wrong. They and Wang Chong should have never met before. Wouldn't that be a confession? But at this time, everything was no longer important. Wang Chong appearing here at this time was absolutely not supposed to happen. It's been so long. Thanks to you, it's about time we meet again. Wang Chong sneered. After being attacked by these black-robed men 3 times in a row, this was the first time that Wang Chong saw their real bodies. Li Sai, do it. With Wang Chong's voice, the walls of the entire hall collapsed in an instant. In the billowing dust, countless figures rushed in. Not good. Let's go. The hall collapsed, and the black-robed leader's expression changed. In the billowing dust, he hurriedly glanced outside and saw that the entire courtyard was densely packed with figures. Wang Chong had brought at least thousands of people, and all of them were top-notch experts. This was the power of the top aristocratic families. Since Wang Chong knew their lair, of course, he wouldn't fight them alone. Instead, he brought all the experts he could find. With the current status of the Wang family, thousands of experts would respond to Wang Chong's call. And those that Wang Chong brought were only a small part of them. Against these black-robed men, Wang Chong was like a lion hunting a rabbit, going all out. Since they dared to attack him, they shouldn't think of leaving alive. Peng with a stomp, the black-robed leader knew that something was wrong. Without thinking, he immediately leaped outside, quickly disappearing in the billowing dust. You think you can run? Wang Chong looked in the direction that the black-robed leader had fled, not even giving chase. In order to deal with these black-robed men, he had called over countless experts. If this still allowed him to escape, then it would really be strange. Everyone, don't be afraid. Let's work together and get rid of that brat. As long as we capture that brat and use him to threaten the others, we can still escape. If we kill this son of destruction, the higher-ups will definitely reward us. In the hall, a group of black-robed men saw that they were surrounded on all sides, and anger rose in their hearts. With a shout, the black-robed men pounced on Wang Chong like hungry tigers pouncing on their prey. The air trembled, emitting a sound like steel. In the midst of the sound, a strange, pitch-black halo of thorns suddenly appeared under the feet of these black-robed men. The aura of these black-robed men surged, and each of them fiercely attacked Wang Chong. You overestimate yourself. Wang Chong sneered, and instantly broke through the air. Pung pung pung. Each of the black-robed men was struck by a palm strike from Wang Chong. In the next moment, time seemed to stop. The black-robed men seemed to have their acupoints sealed, and they were frozen in various positions, motionless. In the blink of an eye, a mist of blood suddenly surged out from the bodies of these black-robed men, like 100 rivers flowing into the sea, majestically pouring into Wang Chong's body. With a series of thuds, the black-robed men fell to the ground. Their originally large bodies seemed to have shrunk, turning into dried corpses that fell to the ground. What kind of evil technique is this? Run! The black-robed men had originally wanted to rush forward and cooperate with the others to deal with Wang Chong. But when they saw that their companions had been sucked dry by Wang Chong, their faces filled with terror. All their courage and ferocity instantly disappeared, and they turned to flee. Boom! A cold light flashed in Wang Chong's eyes. The fingers of his right hand spread open, and he clawed at the fleeing men. In an instant, a fierce wind blew, and a powerful attractive force exploded from Wang Chong's body. Before they could run more than a few zhang, they were immediately grabbed by Wang Chong and held in place. Under the suction of the great yin-yang heaven creation art, the blood energy in their bodies broke out of their bodies, transforming into a mist of blood that madly surged into Wang Chong's body. This blood mist flowed through Wang Chong's pores and into his body, and was instantly digested and absorbed. After absorbing this blood energy, Wang Chong's aura clearly grew much stronger. This was the great yin-yang heaven creation art. At this level, he no longer needed the little yin-yang sword. In a situation where there was a great disparity in strength between him and his opponents, Wang Chong did not even need to physically touch them to use the great yin-yang heaven creation art. Thump! Thump! There was a series of thuds as the blood energy of the black-robed men was sucked dry, and they dropped to the ground as desiccated corpses. This was the power of the world's #1 evil art. What power? As Wang Chong looked at the desiccated corpses around him, an abnormally powerful feeling welled up in his heart. Ever since he had used Lu Wu to cultivate the great yin-yang heaven creation art, This was the first time Wang Chong had used this supreme art of the evil path in a real battle. These black-robed men were extremely formidable experts, but they were powerless before the world's #1 evil art. Wang Chong had easily sucked away the energy they had accumulated over decades. This kind of power was obtained too easily, and the process of sucking was accompanied by a strong sense of spiritual pleasure, making people unable to help but sink deep into it, unable to extricate themselves, only wanting to constantly absorb more inner force. If one isn't abnormally powerful, it's very easy to sink into it and become a bloodthirsty and murderous individual. As these thoughts flitted through Wang Chong's mind, a bright light flashed through his eyes. All the surging blood energy and that uncontrollable desire to suck were swiftly suppressed. The pleasure of killing brought about by the great yin-yang heaven creation art was far more powerful than the little yin-yang art, and it was also far more difficult to control. But to Wang Chong, no matter how difficult it was to control, it was no more difficult than fighting against fate. Ah! Screams resounded through the air, and the battle ended much faster than Wang Chong had imagined. Now that they knew that these people were the true assassins of the Wang clan, all the experts Wang Chong had recruited were enraged and began to attack the black-robed men with all their strength. Each black-robed man was surrounded by several dozen experts. One could easily imagine their fates. Child of destruction, you won't be happy for long. Master will avenge us. Suddenly, the remaining black-robed men roared, their eyes exploding as they bit down on the poison capsules between their teeth. Soon, black blood began to flow from their mouths. Thud, thud, thud. The black-robed men dropped to the ground motionless. Damn it! So fast! Wang Chong grimaced. These people were exactly as Solitary Wolf had said. They had hidden poison capsules between their teeth. But Wang Chong had not expected them to be so decisive. They didn't even try to escape, choosing to commit suicide by biting down on the poison. But a few moments later, Wang Chong had returned to normal. No matter how cautious these people were, no matter how resolute they were, it was impossible for them not to leave behind any clues. Chonga, I've brought the person to you. Suddenly, a vigorous voice came out of the churning dust, and the demonic emperor old man's sleeves flapped in the wind as he flew through the air. Bang! Before the evil emperor could land, he shook his wrist and sent a figure to the ground. It was none other than the leader of the black-robed men who had fled earlier. The evil emperor had personally overseen this operation, precisely to prevent anyone from escaping. Even someone as vicious and violent as Lu Wu was as docile as a sheep in front of the evil emperor, much less this black-robed leader. Young master, 2 of the black-robed men have been captured while the rest have been executed. The operation is over. Chapter 676. You may leave. Wang Chong flung his sleeves and nodded. The outcome of this battle was not out of his expectations. The biggest mistake the black-robed men made was to overlook faceless Zhang Wentua's existence. Now it was time for them to pay the price. The rest of you stand guard outside. Li Sai, you stand guard outside. No one is to approach without my orders. Wang Chong issued a series of orders. Turning around, Wang Chong looked at his master, the evil emperor. Master, I'll have to trouble you. I also want to know what kind of person is capable of creating such a monster. The evil emperor slowly walked forward without any hesitation. These people dared to lay their hands on Wang Chong and Wang Xiaoyao, which was a taboo in his heart. Even if Wang Chong hadn't said anything, he would have done it himself. He would have gotten to the bottom of the matter and uprooted them. Every dragon had a reverse scale, and those who touched it would be infuriated. The evil emperor's reverse scale was his last 2 disciples, Wang Chong and Wang Xiaoyao. Whoever dared to touch them would have to die. Wang! The evil emperor opened his palm, and the black-robed leader immediately rose from the ground. Under the pull of an invisible force, he fell into the evil emperor's palm. The evil emperor closed his eyes, and a thick black aura seeped into the head of the black-robed leader. There were many heretical techniques in the heretical path that searched through the memories of others. As the former overlord of the heretical path, and the #1 expert, the evil emperor knew at least 7 to 8 of these techniques. If they wanted to know the truth, there was no need for corrupt path experts like them to use torture to interrogate them. They would be able to directly learn the truth. Wang. Time passed slowly. The evil emperor stood there unmoving, while the leader of the black-robed men hovered in the air, his body twitching uncontrollably. He let out a series of meaningless sounds, as if he was in great pain. The techniques of the evil path, especially those that directly searched the memories of the target, were extremely tyrannical and cruel. Furthermore, they had great repercussions. Most of the targets of this sorcery would suffer severe brain damage and eventually become an idiot. Wang Chong stood next to the demonic emperor old man, his eyes brimming with anticipation as he looked at his master. Even in Wang Chong's era, the demonic emperor old man was an existence that the vast majority of people could only look up to, an unreachable existence. If even he couldn't find any information about these people, then it was even more impossible for others to do so. Everything has a reason. Once we capture the leader of these people, we should be able to find out their true intentions soon. Wang Chong thought to himself. There was almost no secret in the entire Central Plains that Wang Chong didn't know. But these black-robed men didn't seem to exist in any corner of history. Wang Chong had no memory of them, and everything was shrouded in a thick fog. Time slowly passed, and after some time, the demonic emperor old man finally opened his eyes. Master, how is it? Did you find out where they came from? Wang Chong took 2 steps forward and asked in concern. What a formidable psychic seal! To Wang Chong's surprise, the evil emperor didn't immediately answer him. Instead, he gave a long sigh. I've roamed the martial world for several decades, but this is the first time I've encountered such a powerful and top-notch psychic seal. Chonger, you've truly met your match this time. With these final words, the evil emperor turned to Wang Chong, deep worry in his eyes. Master, did you find anything? Wang Chong's heart thumped as he suddenly had a bad premonition. Judging from his master's reaction, it didn't seem like he had succeeded. Wang Chong found it hard to imagine what it was that even his master, the #1 expert of the evil path, couldn't deal with it. How could this be? No matter how formidable their psychic seal is, it's impossible for it to stop me. The evil emperor harumphed and raised his eyebrows. His expression was one of disdain and confidence. The other party has an extremely formidable psychic seal expert, and all of their most crucial memories have been sealed. If they were carelessly touched, their bodies would immediately explode, and they wouldn't be able to leak any information. With these final words, the evil emperor pointed a finger at the black-robed leader in his palm. However, nothing is absolute. No matter how strict their defenses are, I still managed to find some information about them. These people call themselves the children of God, and they seem to believe that they are following a true God. Laughable. The evil emperor snorted disdainfully at these words. As the #1 expert of the evil path, the evil emperor had never believed in gods, much less gods. It was just a bunch of fools who had been fooled. Moreover, if gods really did exist, didn't that mean that he himself was a god? It's just a bunch of fools pretending to be gods. The evil emperor's eyes were filled with disdain. In the world of martial artists, the strong preyed on the weak was an unshakable principle. The so-called gods, even if there really were, would only be some more powerful martial artists. The human heart was truly foolish. Gods. Wang Chong's eyebrows rose in thought. This news had completely exceeded his expectations. That's right. Although they're just a bunch of shady, sneaky, and shady factions that play tricks on the minds of others, they do have some outstanding aspects. From the memories of the monster we killed, your master learned that it was a creature they called Lu Wu, a creature created by gods. Although I don't believe that anyone in this world can be called a god, that monster was truly a good one. At the end, the demonic emperor old man gave a rare nod. A monster that not even Wuxia steel weapons could deal with was definitely not a creature of nature. If not for the fact that the evil emperor was proficient in the myriad spirit sea art, which allowed him to break through all defenses, he really would have been helpless against it. In addition, although their psychic seal art is extremely formidable, I was still able to find some clues. If I'm not mistaken, These people should have come from the northwest. This is why there are almost no records of their existence in the Central Plains. The northwest. Wang Chang's brow creased at these words. That was the location of his next target. If that was where the nest of those people was. Master, I'll have to trouble you this time. Wang Chong took in a deep breath and quickly regained his composure. At the same time, he waved his hand behind him. Men, bring all these people back. 2 captives, and the leader of the black-robed men. He could dig out more information from these people. At the very least, Wang Chong knew the simplest trick of loosening the reins only to grasp them better. Yes, young master. A few experts immediately responded. But just as they bent down and were about to carry the leader of the black-robed men away, something unexpected happened. Bang! Right before everyone's eyes, the head of the black-robed man wearing the demon mask suddenly exploded without warning. Countless pieces of flesh and blood splattered all over the surrounding area. Following that, 2 more explosions were heard from other places. Cries of alarm and commotion could be heard from the back. Young master, bad news. Young master, the 2 guards that we captured suddenly had their heads explode. A few guards suddenly rushed over from the back. In an instant, the atmosphere around them changed abruptly. Wang Chong looked at the corpses and broken pieces on the ground, and his face darkened. He had wanted to make use of these people to do something, but now it was all for naught. I'm still too slow. I didn't expect them to react so quickly. The evil emperor's face darkened. His reaction was faster than Wang Chong's. When the black-robed men's leader's body started acting strangely, he had already noticed it. But he was still too slow. Although he was once known as the world's #1 villainous expert, he was not very proficient in the field of spiritual seals. And the person who was able to place seals in the minds of these black-robed men was obviously an expert in this field. These people are too cautious. Wang Chong's eyebrows twitched. The black-robed men's leader's head would not explode for no reason. The biggest possibility was that the forces behind the black-robed men had already noticed the evil emperor and sensed the changes in the seals. That was why they detonated the seals in the black-robed men's minds and killed them instantly. In an instant, Wang Chong's eyebrows darkened. His foe was far more cautious than he had imagined. Although he had found some clues, even more mysteries had arisen. Moreover, his foe's methods were almost divine. Whether it was Lu Wu or those extremely subtle spiritual seals, they had all surpassed the limits of ordinary martial arts. But Wang Chong quickly regained his composure. No matter how fast your reactions are, no matter how cautious you are, there will come a day when I will find all of you. If I can catch you once, I can catch you a second time. Wang Chong coldly said. Although his foe had destroyed his crucial trump card, Wang Chong had still obtained what he wanted. Li Sai, pass on my order. Prepare to retreat. Yes, young master. The grandiose operation had come to an end. Chonger, have you decided where your fief will be? In the Wang clan residence, Wang Zhen, dressed in a crimson official's robe and a golden green sash, was seated on a rosewood armchair. He was lightly sipping tea, his expression relaxed and contented. Wang Zhen's face was ruddy, a sign that he was in a good mood. When a man attained the Tao, his chickens and dogs would ascend with him. Wang Chong had rendered great service in the southwest, and the entire Wang clan was riding on the crest of success. Even his big uncle Wang Zhen had been rewarded by the imperial court. This could be seen from his official's robe and belt. But Wang Zhen was currently most concerned about the issue of Wang Chong's fief. This was also his primary reason for coming here. The descendants of the Wang clan were connected by blood. They would prosper together, and they would suffer together. The events of the Southwest were enough to illustrate this problem. A fief seemed simple, but it was related to the long-term well-being of the descendants of a noble clan. Any clan that could obtain a fief was no small matter. The Wang clan was clearly no different. Chonga, I've already thought about it for you. In the last few days, I've thoroughly flipped through the fiefs of the Tang dynasty and looked them over for you. In the end, I finally found the best place for you. Wang Zhen smiled as he put down his teacup. With a light flick of his finger, he opened a scroll on the table. Whoosh! With a soft clatter, a map of the Tang dynasty appeared in front of Wang Chong. In the world, the richest place is Longxi. I've already chosen it for you. It's in Zhao County. That place isn't large, but it's extremely wealthy. Just the taxes alone can reach more than 200,000 years a year. Don't you need money right now? This is the best choice. These last words were powerful and resonant. These simple words were the result of Wang Jin's diligent research over this period of time. This was the best result for both Wang Chong and the entire Wang clan. As long as they had this piece of land, regardless of whether or not the Wang clan made a great contribution in the future, regardless of whether or not the Wang clan produced any talented generals or ministers, the entire Wang clan would definitely prosper. Do not entrust the rise and fall of the clan to a single person, and do not entrust the success or failure of the clan to a single moment. This was the wise way for every great clan to survive and prosper for generations to come. The Wang clan had finally touched the edge of this invisible threshold. Chapter 677. Uncle Zhao is good, but I've already thought it through. Wang Chong suddenly spoke up, interrupting Wang Jin's words. Sitting on the chair, Wang Jin's face froze in shock. As for the issue of fiefdom, I've thought about it for a long time. Although Zhao's land isn't bad, to me, it's not a good place. There is another place that is more suitable for me. Wang Chong lightly blew at the foam on the surface of the tea, and took a sip of the tea. His expression was calm as he spoke. You already have an idea? Wang Jin's eyes were wide open, and his mind was unable to process the situation. He had to admit that Wang Chong's words completely exceeded his expectations. Where do you want your fief? Which place is better than Zhao? Wuxiang. Stretching out a finger, Wang Chong tapped on an inconspicuous location to the west of Longxi on Wang Jin's map. Seeing the location pointed out by Wang Chong, the smile on Wang Jin's face immediately vanished, and he found it hard to maintain his composure. Chonga, are you joking? His first reaction was to think that Wang Chong was joking, that he had misheard, or that Wang Chong had pointed at the wrong place on the map. However, seeing the serious expression on Wang Chong's face, it was clear that he was not joking at all. His expression immediately turned grim. Chong'er, the matter of the fief is no small matter. Do you know how many aristocratic families and nobles are envious of us? The Holy Emperor had opened his golden mouth. This was a major event that had not happened in decades. In the entire Tang dynasty, except for the capital, as long as you wanted, you could choose anywhere you wanted. This is a great favor from the heavens. Wang Jin had always placed great importance on this nephew of his, and he had great trust in him. To some extent, he even valued him more than his own son. If others said that Wang Chong was the Wang clan's Qilin son, the number one expert of the younger generation, and not his own son, Wang Li, not only would Wang Jin not be unhappy, he would even feel honored and proud of it. But this time was completely different. Wuxiang, do you know what that place is? As the saying goes, the world is rich and populous, but nowhere is Longyu. There was no better fief than Longxi. Moreover, even though you had some conflict with Geshu Han during the regional commander's incident, the fief was His Majesty's decree, and not even Geshu Han dared to interfere in the slightest. If this matter is done well, it will be of great benefit to both you and our Wang clan. But you want to establish a fief on this barren land near Qixi. Just what are you thinking? Wang Jin's words were heavy. He straightened his back and looked at his nephew sternly. Wuxiang was a place that Wang Jin had no impression of. However, Wang Jin knew the location Wang Chong had chosen on the map. If Wang Chong had chosen a slightly better location, he would not have ended up in such a state. But Wang Chong had chosen a barren land on the road to the west. This was a complete waste of the imperial court's intention in bestowing a fief to Wang Chong. Haha, big uncle, I know that you find this hard to accept, but I have my reasons for doing this. Wang Chong smiled at these words. He picked up the teacup on the table and took a sip, his expression calm and composed, not the slightest bit nervous. Then why? Perhaps influenced by Wang Jin's attitude, Wang Jin took in a deep breath and relaxed a little. Haha, big uncle, Wuxiang truly is a barren land. But big uncle, take a closer look. What is this place? As Wang Chong spoke, His finger lightly traced a line on the map. At first glance, Wang Zhen did not notice anything, but on second glance, his eyes widened as he realized something. You mean the Silk Road? That's right. Yes, the Silk Road. Wang Chong chuckled. Not too far from the Wuxiang he had chosen was a winding road. It was the famous Silk Road to the west that all the foreign kingdoms, including the Tang dynasty, were familiar with. Are you intending to make a fuss on this road? Wang Zhen glanced at Wang Chong with a contemplative look on his face, and his expression gradually became less stern. The Silk Road to the west was also a famous golden road. Innumerable merchants from both the east and the west traversed this road. Silk, spices, jewels, jade, porcelain, camels, tea leaves. Almost all the merchants from the western regions, who came to the Tang dynasty to do business, would pass through this road. The massive disparity in prices between the east and the west resulted in massive profits. As a result, this road gave birth to many wealthy merchants. Those merchants who came to the Tang dynasty to do business were all filthy rich. Pearls, agate, jade, all of these were like clay tiles to them. The goods they bought and sold were all of great value. And the wealth they earned was something that many people would never be able to imagine in their entire lives. Even the great clans would have to lament their inadequacies. And in terms of importance, the Silk Road to the west was indisputably the #1 road in the world, far more important than the famous Tea-Horse Road in the southwest. From a certain perspective, the Silk Road, which maintained trade relations with the various kingdoms, played a significant role in the Tang dynasty's current prosperity. Big Uncle, the land of Zhao isn't bad, but it's still stagnant water. At the very most, it's only 200,000, but the Silk Road to the west is different. Whether it's the Great Han Dynasty, the previous dynasty, or the current dynasty, the first thing they did after the world was stabilized was to open up the Silk Road. From this, one can easily imagine how much importance the empire places on this road. Wang Chong confidently said. Big Uncle, you know just how wealthy the merchants of the capital are. The merchants of the western regions, the spice merchants of the Abbasid Caliphate, and the jewelry merchants of Charax-Spazinu travel tens of thousands of li to the Tang dynasty every year. And they all carry enormous amounts of wealth with them. Has eldest uncle ever thought about it? With so many merchants coming and going, how much wealth must be flowing through this trade route every day? This, Wang Zhen fell silent. Wang Zhen understood even better than Wang Chong just how much importance the Tang dynasty placed on this road to the west. It was for no other reason than that this was the sage emperor's will. In the Tang dynasty of the Central Plains, no one inside or outside the court dared to question the decisions of the holy emperor. This was also the reason why this road had always been able to move without any obstruction. Moreover, there was one thing that Wang Chong had said correctly. This road to the west truly was extremely wealthy. Even the Bureau of Revenue, which was responsible for the finances of the court, found it difficult to calculate the amount of wealth that flowed through it every day, much less other people. So Chonger, you mean that you want to seize profits from this road? Wang Chong gave a firm nod, his eyes deep and his expression one of deep contemplation. But this is useless. The merchants are unique in their trade, and no one else can get involved in it. In the past, when the Silk Road was opened, there were many great clans and nobles who coveted this road, and even the princes of the imperial household wanted to get involved. But later on, we quickly realized that we couldn't understand the languages of the western regions, Abbasid Caliphate, and Charax-Spazinu, and the Tang people disdained learning the languages of the barbarians. Moreover, Abbasid Caliphate and Charax-Spazinu were separated by tens of thousands of li, and the journey was arduous. Moreover, we weren't familiar with the environment there, so no one could get involved. The great clans and nobles of the capital only gave up after several failed attempts. Chonga, it's not that I want to deny you. Your idea is quite good, but it's not very feasible in practice. He shook his head, a hint of concern in his eyes as he looked at Wang Chong. Wang Chong's ambition to use the Silk Road to the west and covet it was worthy of recognition. However, it was obvious that he had underestimated all of this. If one could casually take a slice of the pie, the Great Tang would have long ago been established, and all the nobles in the capital would have already taken their share of the profits. How could the Wang clan have gotten their turn? How could it have waited until now? In the War of the Southwest, Wang Chong had truly displayed an extraordinary talent for the art of war. But the art of war and the art of trade were different. Not even Wang Chong could be skilled in both. Haha, big uncle, you've misunderstood. Wang Chong laughed at these words. I'm not planning on getting involved in the silk, spices and jewels business, and selling them in Abbasid Caliphate and Karak Spazinu. The Silk Road to the west is 10,000 some li, and I can only make 1 or 2 trips a year. It takes far too long to turn the money around. Turn the money around? A hint of surprise flitted through Wang Zhen's eyes, but he quickly regained his composure. He was already used to his nephew's astonishing words. Everyone in the capital knew of the phrase, "Who laughs in the end laughs best." If you don't want to get involved in these businesses, what do you want to do? Wang Zhen was truly rather confused this time. The most profitable businesses on the Silk Road to the west were silk, jewels, and spices. If he didn't get involved in these businesses, how could he make money? Wang Zhen found it impossible to see through his nephew's thoughts. Haha, of course it's to build a city there and earn the profits of those merchants. As Wang Chong chuckled, the teacup in his hand splashed tea onto the map of the Tang dynasty, the place representing the Silk Road. This move was completely unexpected. Wang Zhen stared in a daze at the cup that had appeared on the map of the Tang dynasty, speechless. Big uncle. Wang Chong pushed back his chair and stood up. The Silk Road to the west is rich in profits, but it is a long journey, and as the saying goes, a long night is fraught with dreams. For this reason, the road to the west is rife with bandits, and coupled with the complex terrain, the imperial court has repeatedly tried to ban it, but to no avail. And for the sake of the Hyderabad I ordered Li Sai to exterminate the largest bandit group on the Silk Road, the Black Dragon Bandit. But the Black Dragon Bandit is only one of them. Before that, there was the Peilong Bandit, the Black Flame Bandit, and in the future, there will be other gangs. As long as there is profit, this situation will continue despite repeated bans. Think about it. If there was a city on the Silk Road to the west where all the merchants could obtain protection and supplies, would they be willing to come? Would they be willing to come? And each of the merchants traveling to the west is a massive caravan, with several hundred, or even more than 1,000 people. For so many people to stay here for a single day, it would be no small expense. If they could buy and sell things here for free, would there be people willing to come here to do business? In this aspect, the merchants traveling to the west are extremely generous. And once more people gather here, they will be able to collect taxes. What do you think will happen to such a city, big uncle? After all, this is a unique business. Chapter 678. Translated by Hypersheep 325. On the other side, Wang Chong's big uncle, Wang Zhen, was flabbergasted. He had only wanted to find a fief for Wang Chong, but he had never imagined that Wang Chong was thinking of building a city for himself. And what shocked Wang Zhen the most was Wang Chong's final words. There truly was a great business opportunity on the road to the west. If Wang Chong succeeded, it would truly be a one-of-a-kind business. On the entire Silk Road, that would be the only city, as well as the largest relay station. All merchants, be they from the western regions, Karak Spazinu, or the Abbasid Caliphate, would be unable to avoid Wang Chong's city if they wanted to do business. In the entire Tang dynasty, there were countless noble clans, nobles, and aristocrats who had wanted to have a hand in the road to the west, but none had ever succeeded. The reason was very simple. The first was that no one had ever thought of what Wang Chong had just said. The other reason was that it had been many years since the Tang dynasty had opened up a fief. And without a fief, no one could build a city on the Silk Road. Given the importance that the Holy Emperor placed on the Silk Road, the imperial court would have been the first to fail. But now, Wang Chong had truly obtained the right to do so. Wang Zhen had to admit that he had truly underestimated this nephew of his. What Wang Chong wanted was far greater than what he wanted. And if he succeeded, there was a high chance that the Wang clan's harvest would be even greater than that of a wealthy land like the Zhao clan. In the hall, Wang Chong inwardly smiled as he looked at his big uncle, who had clearly been stunned by his words and was deep in thought. In the world he had come from, the concept of managing a city wasn't that big of a deal. But in this world, it was clearly a novel concept that no one had ever set foot on. I only have one last question. Building a city is no small matter. This was especially so for something that came from nothing. It was even more costly. Even the imperial court did not dare to say that they would build a city on the road to the west. Moreover, in order to reinforce the southwest, you've already spent all your gold and silver. With just the 3 million taels of gold bestowed by the Holy Emperor, how will you build a city? Wang Jin asked. Lion City in the southwest wasn't very big, but it had already cost several million. Furthermore, it was an empty city. The difficulty and cost of building a city in the barren land of the west was definitely far greater than Lion City in the southwest. Moreover, considering that Wang Chong might want to build some inns or something like that, the costs would be even greater. This was not something that a single Wang clan could support. To construct a fief like this from scratch would require a cost that would make the vast majority of the ancient, wealthy and powerful clans of the capital shrink back in fear. This is even easier. There are so many great clans and nobles in the capital. Does Big Uncle still have to worry about money? Wang Chong gave a carefree smile. The world was bustling for profit, and the world was bustling for profit. Wang Chong had fully experienced this point in the War of the Southwest. He was just playing the same old trick again. In truth, he didn't even need to say anything. Countless people in the capital were eagerly waiting to work with him. Okay. Upon hearing Wang Chong's words, Wang Jin suddenly slapped the table and stood up from his armchair. When Wang Chong said that he wanted to build a fief in Wuxiang, he had been rather angry at the start, but now, all his anger had been swept away, and his eyes were bright and spirited. Chong, I've never doubted your talent in the art of war. In the field of trade, there is no one in the Wang clan with a better mind for business than you. I was originally most worried about your mind for politics. Since ancient times, countless great generals have brought disaster upon themselves and their clans because they didn't understand the politics of the court. The greater one's talent in the art of war, the higher one climbs, the greater the disaster they will bring upon themselves. I was originally worried about this. After all, you're still too young. But now, I'm completely at ease. Wang Jin's face was ruddy, and he appeared to be overjoyed. A man's wealth is his own ruin. The exclusive business on the road to the west truly was excellent, but it could also easily bring about a massive disaster. But if Wang Chong were to bring in all the other nobles and great clans of the capital, everything would be completely different. It would be equivalent to all the nobles and great clans of the capital standing together with the Wang clan. This alone would allow the Wang clan to establish itself in an invincible position in the court. This was truly an unshakable cause for all ages. In the future, even if Wang Chong were to truly step into the court and become a member of the faction that wielded real power, his current connections would definitely allow him to become an important figure in the court. Wang Jin could faintly see traces of the old master on Wang Chong's body. Wang Jin quickly left the Wang clan, and he left with satisfaction. This nephew of his was always so outstanding, always so proud. In fact, when Wang Jin left, his footsteps were much firmer, and his head was raised even higher. With a nephew like this, what more could he ask for? What need would the Wang clan have to worry about not being able to prosper in the future? But Wang Jin had no idea that after he left, Wang Chong quickly fell silent. His gaze fell on the table, on the map of the Tang dynasty, that his big uncle had placed on the table. His gaze paused on the famous Silk Road, for only a few moments before Wang Chong's gaze quickly moved west, falling on the northwest of the Tang dynasty. The western regions. Wang Jin had no idea that Wang Chong's insistence on establishing his fief in Wuxiang was not because of the famous Silk Road, but because of the distant western regions, the Tang dynasty's Annan Protectorate. The Silk Road was a famed road of wealth, a road of gold, but it was also the lifeline of the Tang dynasty's Annan Protectorate. Every year, countless weapons and supplies of the Tang dynasty would pass through this road. A storm was brewing, but no one besides Wang Chong knew that the empire's next crisis would come from the northwest of the Tang dynasty. In a place that no one was paying attention to, another empire as powerful as the Tang dynasty was extending its tentacles toward the Tang dynasty's western regions. This was a war between two great empires of the east and west. Unlike the War of the Southwest, only the 30,000 warriors of the Tang dynasty took part in this war, far fewer than the 180,000 soldiers of the Annam Protectorate. The number of casualties in this war, and the number of civilians of the Tang dynasty affected, did not reach nearly 1 million. In truth, the only ones affected were the Hu of the western regions, but the far-reaching effects it would bring would far surpass the Southwestern War, because this campaign would affect the entire Central Plains. Gao Xianji, although we stand on different sides, I will do all I can to help you in this matter. I hope that you won't disappoint me, Wang Chong quietly said to himself. Although the Anqi Protectorate only had 30,000 soldiers, they were more than 30,000 of the Great Tang's most elite soldiers. In terms of martial arts, training and teamwork, they were the best in the Great Tang Empire. The soldiers sent over were all the strongest soldiers of the various prefectures, and border defenses of the Tang dynasty. Moreover, they were equipped with all sorts of weapons, all of them of excellent quality. Just the ballistae alone numbered in the tens of thousands, enough for every soldier to have one. Moreover, there were many more in the storehouses. Almost all the best weapons of the Bureau of Military Personnel of the Tang dynasty had been sent there. In addition, from when Emperor Wu of Han first opened the western regions, to when the Tang dynasty was established, the Central Plains had a powerful influence in the western regions. Moreover, Gao Xianji was a foreigner, so he knew many languages of the western regions, and was skilled in handling disputes between foreigners and Han. Thus, he was able to wield power in the western regions. Although the Tang only had 30,000 some soldiers, the army of foreigners numbered 170,000 to 180,000, and they were extremely skilled in commanding their troops. Thus, although the Tang soldiers of the Anqi Protectorate were few, they were extremely powerful. Together with the foreign and Han duo of Gao Xianji and Feng Changqing, they became the strongest protectors of the western region's border. The only thing holding them back was the long supply line, and the supply line. If war broke out, the Anqi Protectorate could only rely on the foreign and Han army of more than 200,000 soldiers. And the most reliable force in this army was the 30,000 elite soldiers of the Tang dynasty. It was almost impossible to obtain supplies or reinforcements. This was the innate flaw that the Tang dynasty's two walls of the empire could not make up for. At the same time, it was also the greatest weakness of the Tang dynasty and the rapidly rising Arabian Empire in the far west. And this fief on the Silk Road was the greatest effort that Wang Chong had made for this upcoming war in the western regions. Once he had a massive city to serve as the economic, military, and logistical hub for the road to the west, as well as a storage area. If anything happened in the western regions, the soldiers in the city could quickly travel west to replenish the western regions. This would become the Anqi Protectorate's greatest source of logistical support and the fastest source of reinforcements. This was the true reason why Wang Chong had chosen to build his fief on the barren and desolate Silk Road instead of the rich and populous land of Longxi. As for why he had chosen Wuxiang on the Silk Road instead of any other place, the reason was extremely simple. Because that was where the Tang dynasty's most valiant and most excellent source of soldiers was located. In the Central Plains, when that calamity had descended, the Tang dynasty's imperial court had made a massive misjudgment. They had mistakenly believed that the otherworldly invaders were not as strong as the legends made them out to be. The reason was that the otherworldly invaders had encountered a powerful resistance at a place called Wuxiang. Moreover, when they first set foot in the world of the Tang dynasty, they had suffered significant casualties. Thus, the Tang dynasty of that time did not pay much attention to these legendary otherworldly invaders. Their attention was still focused on the foreign countries like Goguryeo, the Turks, Mengshi Zhao, and Uzan. It was only when the armies of the Tang dynasty truly clashed with these otherworldly invaders, and were routed like clay chickens and pottery dogs, did they realize what it meant to be utterly defeated. Only then did they realize how powerful and terrifying these otherworldly invaders were. Later on, when Wang Chong became the Grand Marshal of the Central Plains, he gathered all of the remnants of Wuxiang's army, forming a total of 6,000 men. After further training, they became the most elite, powerful, ferocious, and loyal troops under Wang Chong's command. They were known as the strongest Wuxiang steel cavalry of the Central Plains. Regardless of whether they were mounted or dismounted, these Wuxiang steel cavalry possessed extremely powerful fighting prowess. Moreover, the meridians of the Wuxiang steel cavalry were unique. They were born to cultivate martial arts. Even the renowned Tongluo tribe couldn't compare to them in this aspect. It was a pity that by the time Wang Chong noticed, there were only 6,000 Wuxiang steel cavalry left. Wang Chong had asked around. At the peak of Wuxiang steel cavalry, it was said that there were 50,000 people in the village. Even after deducting the women, the elderly, and the children, there were still over 30,000 able-bodied men. It was a pity that these people had all died in battle when the otherworldly invaders invaded the south. This was the deepest regret in Wang Chong's heart back then. 6,000 Wuxiang steel cavalry had already propped up the war in the later stages of the Great Calamity. If there were over 30,000 Wuxiang steel cavalry, perhaps everything would be completely different. Chapter 679. Now that he had the authority to establish a fief, Wang Chong would never let go of this chance. The 50,000 valiant warriors of Wuxiang were Wang Chong's goal. According to the rules of the Tang dynasty, once Wang Chong established a city there and became a fief, the villages of Wuxiang would be under Wang Chong's jurisdiction, and no one would be able to compete with him. This would be the greatest bargaining chip he could use to change his fate and reshape the Tang dynasty. It's time to put some other matters on the agenda. As this thought flitted through Wang Chong's mind, he picked up the map of the Tang dynasty and left the room. What? The young marquis actually chose a barren and desolate land like Wuxiang as his fief. Is he crazy? How could he give up on such a good chance? What a waste! The Wang clan actually wasted such a good chance. The Son of Heaven's favor is something countless people can only dream of. It's fine if Wang Chong is young and doesn't understand, but as an old official of the court, why didn't he try to persuade him? Just what was he thinking? When the news that Wang Chong had chosen the distant land of Wuxiang as his fief spread, it caused massive waves in the capital. Everyone was dumbfounded by this rash decision. Choosing a piece of blessed land to benefit their descendants was something that none of the great clans would even think about. However, the Wang clan had actually chosen the most barren and desolate piece of land. This was something that no one could have imagined, even if they cracked their heads. It seems like we overestimated them too much. Since the Wang clan has chosen Wuxiang, let's notify the Bureau of Revenue and have this matter be settled as quickly as possible. We don't want to give the Wang clan a chance to back out. When the news reached King Qi, he was at first stunned, and then he sneered. It was rare for the Wang clan to make such a low-level mistake, so he would not let it go so easily. Settling this matter as quickly as possible was the best response to the Wang clan. However, Prince Qi's complacency did not last long. Once the Ministry of Revenue's approval was granted, the situation quickly reversed. News quickly spread through the capital that the young marquis had chosen Wuxiang as his fief, because he had his eye on the Silk Road to the west. In addition, the young marquis had decided to build a massive city on the Silk Road to the west as a resting place for merchants. He wanted to build inns, restaurants, and tea houses there, as well as store a large amount of supplies for the merchants. At the same time, he would provide them with assistance and necessary protection. As the news spread, it caused a huge sensation in the capital. The first to react to this news were the vast number of merchants in the capital. All the merchants from the western regions, the Abbasid Caliphate, and Karak-Spazinu swarmed to the Wang family residence, asking for information on that city, when it would be built, how big it was, where it was located, what supplies it could provide. These were all things that they were concerned about. The Silk Road was an important route for communication between the East and the West. There was an enormous amount of wealth flowing through it that was difficult to estimate. The degree of its richness was known to all the countries, and there was no one who didn't know about it. But the endless trade routes and the bandits and brigands that could never be eliminated were always a pain in the hearts of all the merchants. Thus, the news that Wang Chong was planning to build a city on the Silk Road immediately attracted the attention of all the Hu merchants in the capital. They were also the ones who were most concerned about this matter. If there was a city that could provide supplies, and also provide protection against bandits and brigands, all the Hu merchants would be happy to see it happen, and would be willing to give it their full support. More news began to spread. On the same day that the Bureau of Revenue approved the proposal, one of the wastrel scions of the capital said that Li Yi had already given the 3 million taels of gold that the Holy Emperor had bestowed upon him to the master architect of the Bureau of Works, Zhang Shouji, who had once constructed the imperial palace, and had him put in charge of this matter. And Zhang Shouji had already ordered his trusted disciples to begin recruiting manpower throughout the city. That wastrel scion had only learned of this news because he had a good relationship with one of Zhang Shouji's trusted disciples. As for the Wang clan and Zhang Shouji, they were still in a state of lockdown. More news quickly spread. The young marquis had already issued an order to the great clans of the capital. The Wang clan was not prepared to monopolize the fief on the Western Road. The Wang clan was willing to open the construction of all the cities, inns and restaurants in the city to all the great clans of the capital, so that everyone could share in the enormous profits of the Silk Road. This news was like a stone thrown into a lake, and all the great clans of the capital went into a frenzy. No one dared to imagine just how rich the profits of the Silk Road to the west were, especially since the city that Wang Chong was about to build was the only fief on the Silk Road. No one could compete with him. This was truly a unique business. If Wang Chong was willing to open this business to everyone, the great clans would reap unimaginable profits. Moreover, unlike ordinary business, this was not a business that could be cut off. If they could participate, all the great clans would be able to obtain an endless stream of profits. No great clan could refuse this proposal. Once Wang Chong opened the door, all the great clans would rack their brains and fight over it until their heads bled. And Wang Zhen's stance was quickly made clear. Wang Chong had given his fief to Wuxiang, obtaining his full support. Moreover, Wang Zhen had also announced that Wang Chong's decision was the decision of the entire Wang clan. And the entire Wang clan would give its full support to Wuxiang's construction of a city. This final statement was the final word, instantly making the matter of Wuxiang's construction of a city the center of attention of the entire capital. Many clan heads even personally came to visit the Wang clan with treasures. With this, the greatest obstacle to Wang Chong's construction of a city was resolved. Sai, I'll leave this matter to you. No matter what, I need you to do your utmost to recruit, persuade, and subdue the people of Wuxiang. In the study, Wang Chong and Li Sai stood across from each other. Wang Chong took out a token from his waist and handed it to Li Sai. This is my marquee token. Take it. When necessary, you can transfer soldiers from the Qixi Protectorate, Biting Protectorate, or any of the surrounding armies to cooperate with you. The people of Wuxiang revere strength, but it's very difficult to subdue them with brute force alone. Thus, you need not only strength, but also wisdom and etiquette to obtain victory. Yes, this general will go. A hint of confusion flickered through Li Sai's eyes, but he quickly clasped his fist and bowed. Li Sai had no idea what Wuxiang was, nor had he ever been there, nor did he know why Wang Chong placed so much importance on that place. However, a soldier's duty was to obey orders, and Li Sai was confident that no matter what Wang Chong wanted him to do, he would have a reason. Li Sai took Wang Chong's token and quickly left, leaving only Wang Chong in the room. All was quiet, and Wang Chong's eyes flickered with a pensive light. The people of Wuxiang revered strength, and would not easily submit to others. Otherwise, no one would have been able to subdue them after so many years, and so many people wouldn't have died in the struggle against the otherworldly invaders. However, Wang Chong was not too worried about Li Sai. After all, Li Sai was the future invincible general. He could rely on his bravery to change the course of a war. And he could also rely on his charisma to win over a large number of people. For a person who wasn't very proficient in the art of war and battle formations, to be able to single-handedly raise the morale of his troops and turn the tides of a large-scale battle. There was only one person in the entire Central Plains who could do this. If even Li Sai could not subdue the people of Wuxiang, then it was even more impossible for others to do so. Next, I should think of a way to build that city. This thought flashed through Wang Chong's mind, and he quickly returned to his senses. He pushed open the door and walked out of the study. In the main hall of the Wang clan, there was a familiar figure with a ruddy complexion and high spirits. He was currently sitting on an armchair in the Wang clan, leisurely drinking tea. "Young master." When he saw Wang Chong walk out, Zhang Shouji almost scalded his tongue. He hurriedly put down his teacup and stood up. "You've been waiting for a long time." As Wang Chong spoke, he walked over and gestured for Zhang Shouji to sit down, and then he sat down across from him. "Haha, I heard that young master was receiving guests, so I told them not to disturb you. I didn't think that young master would come before I could even notify him." Zhang Shouji smiled as he sat back down. "Quite a few great clans have come to seek you out recently, right?" Wang Chong picked up another teacup and took a sip. "Haha, thanks to young master. Everyone has their eyes on that thief on the Silk Road, wanting to get a piece of the pie. I've counted them, and almost 80% of the great clans in the capital have come to seek me out. All sorts of treasures, pearls, agate, corals, and jadeite have made my hands go soft. As for the remaining 20%, most of them don't have enough strength and know that they can't compete with the other clans. So they've backed off, so they haven't come." At Wang Chong's words, Zhang Shouji couldn't stop smiling. In his recent time with Wang Chong, the matter of the Silk Road thief had made him an influential figure in the capital. The number of people begging him with gifts could form a line from the east to the west of the city. When he thought about how he had been ignored, he didn't even dare to imagine this. "But young master, I'm a little afraid of taking in so many people. Young master, please tell me who I should take in and who I shouldn't, and who I should choose." "Choose? Why should I choose? Can't I just take them all?" Wang Chong chuckled. Taking a pastry from the plate on the table, he put it in his mouth and began to chew as he looked at Zhang Shouji in amusement. "Ah!" Wang Chong's words made Zhang Shouji's eyes widen. For Wang Chong to say that he was going to take everyone's things was something that Zhang Shouji had never even dared to imagine. There were so many great clans in the capital that it was impossible to count. How could the Wang clan repay this favor? If they're willing to give it to us, why shouldn't we take it? And don't worry about us not being able to fulfill our promise. We'll just build the city as big as we take in the money. When the time comes, we'll build many restaurants, inns, and tea houses. Will we still have to worry about not being able to fulfill our promise?" Wang Chong chuckled unconcerned. Chapter 680. The construction of a city had always been a huge project that consumed a lot of money and was extremely extravagant. As a master architect, Zhang Shouji had been most worried about a lack of funds during construction, leading to the abandonment of the project halfway. But now, the funds he had gathered were more than enough to build quite a few cities. This was no longer as simple as a few 100,000 or a few million taels of gold. For the first time in his life, Zhang Shouji didn't need to worry about funds at all. But this time, not only was he not pleasantly surprised, he was even a little worried for Wang Chong. But it was not so easy to accept money from the great clans. "Young master, this is no small matter. I hope that young master will be careful," Zhang Shouji said in a low voice. Wang Chong smiled but said nothing. He naturally knew what Zhang Shouji was worried about. If his goal was only to use the thief to make money, then accepting so much money from the great clans would naturally be a problem. But Wang Chong had ulterior motives. Making money was just a facade, but the truth was far from it. Moreover, the larger the city, the more clans it would attract. Only then would it be of greater help to the western regions. and it would also be able to obtain more resources and support from the great clans. And from a certain perspective, this would allow his fief to have the greatest influence. A general needed extraordinary foresight and daring. This was something that Zhang Shouji did not possess. I have my own plans. Sir Zhang, there's no need to worry. Wang Chong smiled faintly as he raised a finger. In addition, I hope that the construction of the city can be put on the agenda as soon as possible. 1 month, at most 1 month. Excluding the transportation time of wood and ironware. I hope to complete the construction of the city within 1 month. Buzz. Hearing Wang Chong's words, Zhang Shouji's body trembled, and he suddenly raised his head. The construction of a city had always been time-consuming and laborious. The larger the city, the longer it would take. It was completely normal for an ordinary city to take a year or 2. Now that Wang Chong had received so much money from the aristocratic families, wanting to use it all to build a city and finish it within a month was simply impossible. Haha, where there's a will, there's a way. Old Mr. Zhang, have you forgotten about that city of steel we built on the mountain to resist Mengshi Zhao and Uzun? Wang Chong seemed to have seen through Zhang Shouji's thoughts and smiled. But even this is not enough. Zhang Shouji was a little anxious. Building a huge city within a month was a miracle that could only be accomplished by God. Wang Chong's request was simply impossible. It's naturally impossible for an ordinary city, but that's not necessarily the case for a steel city. Wang Chong smiled and waved his hand without even turning his head. Wei Guo, Wei Wu, bring the thing in. Bang! The door opened, and the 2 guards, Wei Guo and Wei Wu, walked in with a large metal chest that had been prepared in advance. Zhang Shouji, whose face was full of worry a moment ago, seemed to have already expected this. He looked at the box and laughed. He took 2 or 3 steps away from his seat, and without waiting for the big iron box to stabilize, he rushed over and opened the iron box's lid. Ha ha ha, I was right. Young master really did come prepared. Zhang Shouji looked at the white scrolls in the metal box, beaming with joy. He reached out with his right hand and scooped up one of the scrolls. His previous worried expression was nowhere to be seen. Swish! He unfurled the white scroll, revealing a profound, complex, and incomprehensible structure. In the past, unless Wang Chong personally explained it, not even the most formidable architect of the Tang dynasty would be able to see through Wang Chong's secrets. The majority of people probably didn't even know what this was. But after working with Wang Chong on the steel wall, on the surface of the mountain, Zhang Shouji could tell at a glance that this was a blueprint for a steel wall. Moreover, it was a massive and complex structure that was even grander than Wang Chong's steel wall in the southwest. Not bad, not bad. Ha ha ha, this is true wealth. Young master from the southwest, I knew that you would definitely build a true steel city. My premonition was right. Although a month is rather short, if it's a steel city, I'm willing to do my utmost and use all my strength to complete it. Zhang Shouji's eyes were bright, his entire body trembling in excitement. He looked at the white scroll like it was the most precious treasure in the world. The gifts sent by the aristocratic families were indeed tempting. But for a true civil engineering master, only the truly great architectural blueprints were the most tempting treasures in the world. A steel city, although he had only seen a small portion of this massive structure, to Zhang Shouji, from this moment onwards, there was nothing in the world that could attract his attention more than this never-before-seen steel city. Right now, even if it was an imperial decree, even if it was his life, he could not give up, much less withdraw. 1, 2, 3. Zhang Shouji was constantly unfurling one blueprint after another, his expression excited as if he had found a priceless treasure. Wang Chong took a sip of his tea, a smile on his face. Ever since he had learned that he could be granted a fief, he had focused his attention on the steel city on the Silk Road. Time was limited, and the war in the western regions would soon arrive. He simply didn't have 2 or 3 years to build a city. Thus, Wang Chong's best choice was to use modular construction to create a city of steel that had never appeared in this world. In normal circumstances, even if he used modular construction, building a city of steel in a month would still be impossible. This massive and complex project was not something that any great clan, rich or powerful, noble, or imperial prince could accomplish. But it just so happened that Wang Chong had completed the most complicated part. He had pulled in all the great clans of the capital. Once these people were brought in, Wang Chong could borrow the wealth, resources, and manpower of the great clans of the capital to move the world. He could borrow the strength of the entire Tang dynasty to build this all-important steel city. Once this plan succeeded, it would no longer be a problem of Wang Chong building his fief alone. The entire Tang dynasty, the entire world, would be helping Wang Chong build his fief. This fantastical undertaking required enormous resources, wealth, and authority. Nothing like this had ever happened in the history of the Tang dynasty. But now, in Wang Chong's hands, this unimaginable feat had become a reality with his own hands. The blueprints for this steel city are all here. I will leave all the resources, manpower, resources, and finance required for its construction to you. In addition, I will have the 4 great swordsmithing clans, and all the swordsmiths and shops in the capital cooperate with you. In this aspect, Wei Guo and Wei Wu will do their utmost to cooperate with you. Seeing Zhang Shouji's eager expression, Wang Chong gave a knowing smile. Putting down his teacup, he stood up from his seat. In addition, once all the great clans receive their money, you will truly be able to mobilize all the swordsmiths, and mines in the world to begin your construction. I already had this intention. Even if young master didn't say so, I would still do it. Just thinking about this massive project makes me excited. If young master doesn't mind, I would like to immediately bid farewell and begin the preparations. Zhang Shouji excitedly said. To a master architect, construction was their life. To be able to create a massive project that would go down in history was the dream of every master architect. And a massive, unimaginably massive steel city on the road to the west was definitely possible. Zhang Shouji quickly left with the chest filled to the brim with blueprints. He called over 30 guards from the Wang clan, and even enlisted Mayasame Ayakas, helped to escort him back home. It was as if the chest wasn't filled with blueprints, but the most valuable treasure in the world. Now there's only one thing left. In the hall, after Zhang Shouji had left, Wang Chong raised his head, his fingers tapping on the table as thoughts flitted through his mind. If he wanted to change the western border of the empire, and change the fate of the Anqi Protectorate, he could not just build a city on the Silk Road. At the same time, this was not something that Wang Chong could solve by recruiting a few Wuxiang warriors. If he wanted to resolve the problem of the Anqi Protectorate once and for all, this was far from enough. In Wang Chong's plan, there was still one last step missing. Out of the city, after leaving his home, Wang Chong boarded a carriage and passed through the streets and alleys, finally passing through the city gate and into a mountain outside the city. Amidst the boundless mountains, a flat, man-made mine stood at the foot of the mountain. The periphery of the mine was heavily guarded. Countless well-armed soldiers were guarding the outside of the mine. Wang Chong's promotion to Marquis was a major event for the entire Wang clan. In order to celebrate, the entire Wang clan had sent gifts. These soldiers had all been sent over by the old subordinates of Wang Chong's grandfather. They had all been carefully selected, warriors of extraordinary strength and extremely reliable. And the latter was what he valued the most. Young master. Upon seeing Wang Chong appear, figures hurriedly emerged from the mine, strode to Wang Chong's carriage and bowed. Jingdian, there's no need to be so courteous in front of me. Wang Chong waved his hand and stopped him, his gaze quickly turning to the mine. How are the preparations for the matter I arranged coming along? Reporting to young master, all the lime and clay have been prepared. In addition, according to young master's orders, we have gathered a large number of masons and had them prepare the materials. Zhao Jingdian respectfully said. Take me to take a look. Wang Chong said. Chapter 681. This was a brand new mine. Wang Chong had been made a marquis and possessed enormous influence in the capital. Coupled with his enormous wealth and influence in the capital, it was a simple matter for him to own a brand new mine. As he walked into the mine, his vision darkened. When Wang Chong opened his eyes, he could finally make out the scene before him. Piles of white lime and brown clay were piled up like small mountains in the mine. Not far from these piles of clay and lime was a water trough that flowed down from the mountains. Not far from this water trough were 40 to 50 experienced masons who had been recruited by the Wang clan. Paying respects to Marquis. Upon seeing Wang Chong enter, all the masons bowed at the waist, their expressions extremely respectful. There's no need to stand on ceremony. Wang Chong waved his hand as he walked into the mine. The interior of the mine was extremely spacious. Although it was not as bright as the outside, it was not dark. In addition, all the structures, like the water trough and the air vents, had been arranged in a very reasonable manner. Not bad. Wang Chong scanned his surroundings and gave a slight nod. Although everything was built according to his wishes, it was still the first time he came here. Pass on my order. Double the number of soldiers. In addition, tell the great clans that are cooperating with us to send more experts to guard the perimeter as well. Wang Chong said. Just like how Wuxia steel had been forged in the way how clans mine. No one could have imagined that the world's most famous Wuxia steel weapons would be forged in that mine. And just 1,000 Wuxia steel weapons had shone brilliantly in the War of the Southwest, attracting the attention of the entire world. Although this mine seemed ordinary, only Wang Chong knew that what it would produce in the future would be even more important to the Tang dynasty than the Wuxia steel weapons. This was because what Wang Chong was about to forge in this ordinary mine would assuredly change the entire Central Plains, the entire Tang dynasty. Cement. Once, Wang Chong had constantly pondered this question. What was the greatest advantage of the Central Plains, the Tang dynasty, or perhaps the entire Central Plains where the Han lived? Without question, it was vast territory and abundant resources. Then what was its greatest weakness? Although he was unwilling to admit it, Wang Chong's final answer was vast territory and abundant resources. Everything had two sides. The Tang dynasty's vast territory and abundant resources meant that it had an enormous population, enormous resources, and formidable regenerative abilities. But at the same time, its vast territory meant that its enormous population, resources would require an extremely long period of time to be successfully transported. Before the soldiers and horses are mobilized, the provisions and fodder must go first. 3 months of war, 3 years of preparation. This was a major flaw that required enormous expenditure. In the War of the Southwest, the Tang dynasty had so many soldiers and imperial great generals. But when Dalian Ruozhen and Huashi Wuzong led more than 200,000 cavalry east, the Tang dynasty had been unable to muster a single soldier to support them. Although it could be said that the foreign kingdoms on the border were keeping them in check, the more important reason was that such a massive country was not easy to mobilize, and all kinds of transportation and reinforcements were extremely time-consuming. Even Wang Chong, one of the elites of the Tang dynasty who had prepared for this war, had still spent more than a month marching south, traveling day and night. But the opponents of the Tang dynasty, whether it was Mengshi Zhao or Uzun, did not have this problem. Jelifeng had not prepared for this war for 3 years, and it had taken only a moment for Dalian Ruozhen and Huashi Wuzong to leave the plateau and join the war in the east. From making a decision to actually entering the war, they had not needed a single moment. Further, on the northeast border, in the territory of Yuzhou, even a famous general like Zhang Shogui, a veteran general, a master of the art of war, would find it very difficult to wage a very intense war against the Goguryeo Empire ruled by Yun Gaesaman. Yun Gaesaman did not need to prepare provisions for 3 years. If something happened in one place, he could immediately send reinforcements from other places. Although this would take some time, it would not take several months. In contrast, the Anong Protectorate could only rely on its own power to deal with an empire. Although the Tang dynasty was powerful, its vast territory made it difficult for it to mobilize its forces. In its battles with foreign countries, it had always been on the defensive. The transportation of provisions and the long distances made it difficult for this empire to put all its strength into dealing with its foes. It was the same with Mengshi Zhao. It was the same with Uzun. It was the same with the Eastern and Western Turks. It was the same with Goguryeo, and it would be the same with the distant Arabian Empire in the future. In order to resolve the millennia-old predicament of the various dynasties of the Central Plains, one had to solve the vast and arduous transportation problem. Cement was the solution that Wang Chong was using to solve this problem of the world. A smooth, open, and level road could save far more time than a rugged mountain path. It could more quickly transport the soldiers of the Tang dynasty from one place to another, and it could more conveniently transport the provisions of the various prefectures and provinces of the Tang dynasty to the capital, where they could then be transported to other battlefields. If one had an extremely convenient road system that extended in all directions, one could transform the Tang dynasty from an extremely fat man to a muscular man who could move quickly, and it would also be able to intimidate the surrounding foreign countries. This was something that could not be achieved or replaced by any martial arts or martial arts. Martial arts were only about one person's bravery, but strategy was about seeing the greater picture. No matter what era, a strategic view of the greater picture could not be replaced. On the martial path, one could only fight 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people, 10,000 people. But on the strategic view of the greater picture, one could fight 100,000 people, 1 million people, and it could even influence one for thousands of years. This was something that nothing could replace. What Wang Chong needed to do was to create a massive road system that would change the vast territory and resources of this powerful empire, so that it could transport supplies and reinforcements several times faster than before. This would intimidate all its enemies and change the flaw that the dynasties of the Central Plains could only ever unleash one punch against the surrounding countries. How is the preparation of the thing I spoke of coming along? Wang Chong turned his head and asked. Young master, according to young master's orders, I have already had these masons prepare it. Young master will understand the specifics after taking a look. As Zhao Jingdian spoke, he led Wang Chong into a tunnel that was not easily visible. Inside the cave, it was a mess. The ground was filled with piles of fine small mounds, and the color of each mound was slightly different. Wang Chong's gaze swept across the ground not too far away from the mound. There were piles of hardened mud there. Young master, according to your instructions, I've already asked the masons to mix lime and clay according to different proportions to make different kinds of slurries. However, the results are still not satisfactory. Young master, you'll understand after taking a look. Zhao Jingdian said, although he did not understand why Wang Chong, as a scion of a clan of ministers and generals, the young marquis of the Tang dynasty, was so highly regarded by the Holy Emperor, that he clearly had more important matters to attend to. Why did he place so much importance on this insignificant mud? Even digging a mine outside the city for him to handle? But Zhao Jingdian was well aware that Wang Chong never spoke without thinking. This seemingly unremarkable mud was assuredly extremely important to Wang Chong, and it was highly likely to be related to some important future plans. Thus, even though he had been transferred to this tiny mine, Zhao Jingdian was conscientious and dedicated to his duties without a word of complaint. Wang Chong silently walked over, bent down, and grabbed a handful of the hardened mud. A pile of fine powder quickly seeped out from between his fingers. Wang Chong's brow furrowed at this sight. This fine powder was so brittle that even a person stepping on it would be pulverized, let alone bearing the weight of a carriage. Cement of this quality was simply incapable of building the roads he wanted, much less completing his plan to transform the empire and shorten the time needed to transport soldiers and reinforcements. After a few moments of silence, Wang Chong took 2 more steps forward to the second pile of hardened mud and reached out once more. This time it was much better. Compared to the first pile of hardened mud, this second pile was much harder, but it was still not enough. With a light tug, it shattered, and Wang Chong did not even need to use stellar energy. As he walked through the third pile, the fourth pile, the fifth pile, each pile of hardened mud had different problems. Some were too brittle, others too loose. But regardless of the type, they were all far from what Wang Chong wanted. I've already had these experienced masons try different ratios. Increase the amount of lime, increase the amount of clay, or change the amount of water. In total, they've tried several hundred different methods, But in the end, they're all unsatisfactory. The hardness of this stuff is too low. In 2 days at most, it'll crack and release a lot of powder, just like what young master is seeing right now. Zhao Jingdian's voice rang out in his ear. Wang Chong instantly fell silent. Developing cement was far more difficult than he had imagined. Although the materials required for cement weren't too rare in this era, and could be developed in theory, it was easier said than done, and carrying it out was far from easy. But even though most of the mud can't be used, these experienced masons still managed to find the optimal ratio of lime and clay. This can be considered the greatest harvest of this period. While Wang Chong was in low spirits and deep in thought, Zhao Jingdian's voice rang out in his ear. At these words, Wang Chong's eyes brightened and his spirits lifted. He turned his head to look at Zhao Jingdian. "Where's the pile of mud you spoke of?" Wang Chong stood up and asked. Chapter 682. We've tested it before. About 3 parts of lime and 1 part of clay have the best effect. Zhao Jingdian respectfully said. But even so, I'm afraid it's just the pot calling the kettle black. Wang Chong nodded. Zhao Jingdian's research had shown some results. It was already quite impressive that they had been able to find the optimal ratio of lime to clay. In fact, Wang Chong felt that the correct formula should be like this. However, this was obviously far from enough. What Wang Chong needed was a cement road that could carry more than a dozen people and weigh thousands of pounds. This level of mud in front of him was obviously not enough. Moreover, just as Zhao Jingdian had said, cement of this level really could only be called mud. It was clear that something else needed to be added. Jingdian, did you get the thing I mentioned before? Wang Chong stood up and asked. Young master, are you talking about the silk ore? A few days ago, according to young master's instructions, we sent people to the mountains of the Northwest Silk Road to dig up the ore that young master mentioned. However, whether or not it is the Lu or that young master spoke of will still require young master's confirmation. Men, bring those ores over. Zhao Jingdian waved his hand, and several guards quickly brought in a basket of ore. Looking at the reddish-brown ore in the basket, Wang Chong snickered inwardly. Of course, there was no such thing as Lu ore in this world. It was just aluminum ore. However, in the world of martial arts, only iron ore would be valued. As for aluminum, of course there was no such thing. This should be it. Wang Chong looked at the ores in the basket and nodded. Aluminum ore itself was not reddish-brown, but there were some iron ore impurities in it. So it appeared this color, but it was still different from real iron ore. This was actually easier to recognize. In the era of the Tang dynasty, there was no concept of aluminum. Just like Zhao Jingdian, he mistook aluminum for strand, and he was completely confused. This made things easier for Wang Chong. At least in this era, no one could compete with him in aluminum ore. As for why Wang Chong had Zhao Jingdian search for aluminum ore, it was very simple. In Wang Chong's memories, adding aluminum ore powder to cement could greatly increase the hardness and viscosity of cement. If the cement made of limestone and clay was the most basic version, then the cement, made with aluminum ore powder, was definitely the more advanced version, and it was infinitely close to the complete version of cement. Bang! Wang Chong lightly clapped his hand and sent out a gust of gang qi. Under the influence of an invisible force, the aluminum ore in the basket was immediately crushed into fine powder and leaked out from the gaps in the basket. Young master! Wang Chong's move caught everyone by surprise, and even Zhao Jingdian was perplexed. Jingdian, call a few masons over and mix it according to the ratio of lime and clay you mentioned. After that, add in the aluminum ore powder. Right, pay attention to the amount of water you add. The more water you add, the worse the performance. Study the optimal amount of water. Wang Chong dusted off the aluminum ore powder and stood up. Now that he thought about it, Wang Chong realized that he had overlooked something. Besides the lime and clay, there was also the amount of water that should be added. These things could also affect the performance of the cement. Most obviously, even the best cement would immediately vanish if thrown into the sea. So how could it have any viscosity? Zhao Jingdian had clearly overlooked this as well when ordering the masons to mix the cement. Yes, young master. A hint of confusion appeared in Zhao Jingdian's eyes, but he still quickly nodded. He would unconditionally obey Wang Chong's orders. The masons in the mine quickly began to work. Wang Chong called over a few more baskets of aluminum, ore and crushed them into powder. He personally supervised the masons as they divided them into piles and mixed them according to the amount of water and aluminum or powder. The mixing didn't take long. 40 to 50 piles of new mud were quickly mixed in the mine according to different proportions. However, the most crucial part was the next hardening process. This would take a long time, and he could only wait. There was nothing else he could do. Wang Chong was clearly very patient, standing in the mine and waiting, showing no signs of impatience. This cement that could change the fate of the empire was no less important to Wang Chong than to the city of steel, perhaps even more so. An hour later, "Young master, it's done." A chief mason stood in front of Wang Chong and respectfully said, Wang Chong nodded and gestured to a foreman. He walked over and grabbed the first pile of hardened mud. Then, he immediately turned his head around with excitement on his face. "Incredible! Young master, good news! With the addition of the cement powder, the cement has become several times harder." The foreman's entire body trembled in excitement. The masons in the mine also became excited at these words, and they began to gather around. During this period of time, they had been surrounding this mud every day, but basically all of their experiments had failed. But now that they heard that the cement had become much harder, how could they not be excited? "Young master, this is good stuff. With this cement, it'll be much easier to cultivate in the future." The experienced foreman grabbed a handful of hardened mud and placed it in front of Wang Chong, his face brimming with hope. At this moment, he immediately realized the enormous use of this material in construction, but to his surprise, Wang Chong's brow creased. They might be satisfied with this kind of cement, but for Wang Chong, it was far from what he wanted. When the foreman grabbed a handful of cement from the pile, it meant that the experiment had failed. Although the hardness of this cement had been greatly improved, it was still far from the cement that Wang Chong wanted. If it could be grabbed with both hands, how could it withstand the force of a carriage that weighed thousands of kilograms? "Try the next pile." Wang Chong's words interrupted the excited crowd. Then the second pile, the third pile, the fourth pile. As the amount of aluminum or powder increased, the hardness of the cement also increased. After the fifth pile, it could no longer be pulled with both hands. In the mine, the crowd was excited at first, but as they watched the cement get harder and harder, and its performance became better and better, they became speechless. A while ago, they had all been wondering what use this meaningless cement would have, but now, none of them could say anything. The scene that Wang Chong had displayed before them was an unimaginable miracle to these masons who had spent their entire lives working with bricks and wood. No one had expected that the young Marquis of the Great Tang, other than his ability to strategize on the battlefield and his astonishing mastery of the art of war, would also possess such inconceivable abilities in construction. Lime and clay were both extremely ordinary objects, but in the hands of the young Marquis, they were no less than stones. Amongst all the ingredients, the only special one was probably the Lu ore that the Marquis had obtained from who knows where. Slowly, all the masons began to feel a deep reverence for the youth next to them. Unlike Wang Chong's military arts, Wang Chong had conquered them in their field of expertise. "Young master, try it. This pile of cement is the hardest and can withstand around 800 Jin of force. Other than martial artists, ordinary people should find it very difficult to destroy." With a resounding voice, a muscular and fully armored guard strode over and stopped in front of Wang Chong. "Buzz!" The surrounding crowd gasped in shock at the guard's words. Although they had made it themselves, even these masons found it hard to believe that it could withstand 800 Jin. This was no longer something that could be described as mud, because no mud could reach this level of hardness. This was similar to stone. In that instant, everyone in the mine turned to look at Wang Chong. Even Zhao Jingdian's eyes widened. He had been in the mine for a very long time, but he had never imagined that Wang Chong would be able to raise the hardness of this meaningless mud to this level. 800 jin is about right. Wang Chong smiled and nodded in satisfaction. 800 jin meant that a muscular man would be incapable of doing the slightest damage to this mud. This was already close to the requirement that Wang Chong had for cement. Although this hardness was still far from the several thousand jin that Wang Chong wanted, roads had never been paved with pure cement. With cement, river sand, gravel, and some steel bars, this road can completely withstand several thousand jin of force without being damaged. Wang Chong looked at the nearby pile of cement, a faint smile on his lips. Now that he had made the true cement formula, he could officially begin his plans. He would open up mountains and mines on a large scale, purchase large quantities of lime and clay, excavate large quantities of aluminum, ore, scour for large quantities of river sand, gravel, and order the various swordsmithing clans, sword shops, and swordsmiths to forge large quantities of steel bars. With these things, he would truly be able to construct a massive, developed, and convenient transportation system in this world. Although the future Tang dynasty would be vast, it would be able to quickly respond to the changes on the borders. This was a major event that would change the course of the Central Plains for the next several thousand years. Buzz! As this thought flitted through his mind, Wang Chong's mind began to rumble, and a familiar voice resounded in his ear. Congratulations to user for unlocking the mission Empire's Fury. The crisscrossing roads are like the veins of the earth, rushing over the land. But the swollen structure, the vast expanse of the land, have troubled this massive and ancient empire, causing it to slumber like a lion. But one day, when the lion awakens, it will unleash a heaven-shaking fury that will pierce through everything. Congratulations to user for developing cement and unlocking the first step of the Empire's Fury, the Fury of the Road. Cement is a weapon that can change the fate of the Empire. User is specially rewarded with 1,000 points of destiny energy. Chapter 683. Wang Chong was stunned, and then a faint smile appeared on his face. After completing the War of the Southwest and advancing from Trial of Destiny to Controller of Destiny, this was the first time Wang Chong had received a reward from the Stone of Destiny. Although Wang Chong had already obtained quite a few points of destiny energy, 1,000 points of destiny energy was still no small sum. I'll keep these points of destiny energy for now. In the future, once I understand the mysteries of the body, energy, and techniques, I'll exchange for them one by one and find the most suitable way to use them. Wang Chong quietly said to himself. After becoming a controller of destiny, the Stone of Destiny had unlocked new rewards. However, Li still had not figured out what they were, so he had not casually exchanged for them yet. Alright, everyone participating in the operation will be rewarded with 300 taels of gold. Jingdian, I'll leave the rest to you. Yes, young master. After taking care of everything, Wang Chong quickly left the mine. When the news that Wang Chong was collecting river sand, gravel, lime, and clay on a large scale to build roads arrived, it once more caused a stir in the capital. The Wang clan was currently the center of attention in the capital, wielding an extraordinary amount of influence. At the juncture of the fief, Wang Chong's actions were even more attention-grabbing. In the Tang dynasty, repairing roads and bridges was no big deal. All the rich and powerful would do this sort of work. But when Wang Chong's actions were accompanied by enormous wealth, everything changed. Moreover, Wang Chong had also roped in the Bai clan, the Zhao clan, the Su clan, and many other illustrious clans of the capital. But this time, not even the Bai clan and Zhao clan involved in the plan knew what this cement road that Wang Chong spoke of was. Linger, just what is the Wang clan doing this time? The lime and clay from before are one thing, but what's this about repairing roads? Our Bai clan is a large clan and can afford this bit of gold and silver. But what's this about repairing roads? In the end, our Bai clan is still a respected figure in the capital. If this matter gets out, it'll be very embarrassing. In the courtyard of the Bai family in the capital, there was a rockery, a garden, a pond, and an elegant marble table. Several elders of the Bai family surrounded Bai Siling and launched a series of attacks. When Bai Siling mentioned that Wang Chong wanted to buy a large amount of lime and clay, The Bai family only thought that it was a good opportunity for them to participate in one of Wang Chong's big plans. After a large number of swordsmiths and smiths in the capital began to forge metal parts, almost everyone in the Great Tang Empire worshipped this 17-year-old youth as a god. Countless great clans wanted to form a relationship with him, so that, just like in the War of the Southwest, they could obtain a share of the credit for his achievements. However, the lime and clay that Wang Chong collected were actually for the purpose of repairing the road. This made things awkward. No matter what, the Bai family was still a top aristocratic family that played an important role in the Tang dynasty. Being involved in this kind of thing would cause the Bai family's prestige to plummet all of a sudden, and it would be very embarrassing for them among the aristocratic families. That was why the scene before them happened. Third great-uncle, second great-uncle, and big uncle. I really didn't know about this. Bai Siling's hands were clenched in her sleeves, her fists clenched as she gnashed her teeth in hatred of Wang Chong. This bastard had dug a hole for her to fall into. Bai Siling had wholeheartedly wanted to help Wang Chong, but she had never imagined that Wang Chong would pull her Bai clan over to repair the road. However, in front of the elders of the clan, not only could she not reveal any of her thoughts, she even had to speak up for him. In addition, third great-uncle, second great-uncle, big uncle, Wang Chong has never done anything without a goal. Perhaps he has an even greater plan that he hasn't told everyone about. Bai Siling said, her hatred for Wang Chong burning. But at this moment, Wang Chong had no idea. Outside the capital, in the Kumwa training camp, the mountains and plains were filled with cheers of Wang Chong. Young master, we're currently in the Kumwa training camp, and hundreds will answer our call. Who knows how many students want to join our deflecting blade manor? In this period of time, I've already received 6,000 or 7,000 applications. I can't look at all of them by myself, so I've already found quite a few people to help me. On the summit of Deflecting Blade Manor, a banner flapped in the wind. Beneath the banner, Wei Anfang and Wang Chong stood side by side, looking down the mountain. Upon learning that Wang Chong had returned to the Kunwa training camp, a sea of people had gathered around Deflecting Blade Mountain, all of them coming to welcome Wang Chong. From time to time, one could even hear the voices of the young Marquis and the Empire's 8th general in the crowd. The Tang dynasty's 3 great training camps were Longwei, Shunwei, and Kunwu. Originally, Kunwa training camp had been the least prestigious, but because of Wang Chong, it had become the most prestigious of the 3 great training camps. Even many of the scions and nobles were no longer going to Longwei or Shunwei, but to Kunwa training camp. This is a good thing. Isn't this exactly what we've been hoping for? Wang Chong held his hands behind his back, his sleeves flapping in the wind as he smiled. The current Wang Chong was very different from before. Every movement of his exuded an invisible might, a free and unrestrained dignity, and bearing that could make others submit to him. But now is the time for the brothers of the academy to go out and temper themselves. Wang Chong said. The Kunwa training camp in this life was vastly different from the one in his previous life, and its influence was far greater than the one in his previous life. Wang Chong had already skimmed through the list of names that Wei Anfang had sent over. Many of the famed generals that had appeared in Longwei and Shunwei had begun to appear in Kunwa training camp. However, they could no longer wait for a calamity to allow them to mature. What Wang Chong needed to do now was to have them mature as much as possible before that calamity arrived. This was also the primary reason he had returned to Kunwa training camp. I've already made the arrangements. This is the first list. As Wang Chong spoke, he took out a white letter from his sleeve and handed it over. Go and make the arrangements so that they can set out as quickly as possible. In the southwest, the skirmishes with Mengshi Zhao and Uzun are still ongoing. This is the best opportunity for you all to train. In addition, I've also talked to the people in the north. Although Sishun has a problem with me, it's impossible for him not to give face to the King of Song. You all can still be taken care of there. Wang Chong indifferently said, his words imbued with the vigor of one who could judge the world. The time had come. Now was the best time to start training. Wang Chong had already gathered too many famed generals in Kunwa training camp. Normally, they would need that great calamity to grow. However, it was not necessary now. With the power and influence of the Wang family and the King of Song, as well as the limelight of him being recently conferred the title of Marquis and becoming the emperor's disciple, Wang Chong was confident that he could send them to every corner of the Tang dynasty and give them the fastest growth. Haha, Sun Bufan will definitely be overjoyed if he knows. This is something he has been dreaming of. Wei Anfang only lowered his head to look at the letter in his hand and immediately smiled. Sun Bufan's name was on the paper, and he was ranked first. Wei Anfang had always been in Deflecting Blade Manor, so he was well aware of the influence of Wang Chong's achievements in the southwest. Right now, all of Deflecting Blade Manor, including the Kunwa training camp, were eager to learn from Wang Chong and go to the border to establish a career. Anfang, seeing how excited you are, if you want, I can also arrange for you to go to the border to gain experience. Wang Chong suddenly smiled. Young master, please don't. I don't want to establish a career. I just want to stay by young master's side. Hearing Wang Chong's words, Wei Anfang hurriedly waved his hands, a look of fear on his face. Haha, if you don't want to go, then don't go. Look at how frightened you are. Wang Chong shook his head and laughed. Seeing that Wang Chong had seen through him, Wei Anfang's expression turned serious. He put away that frightened expression, and his expression became much more natural. Young master, you should keep me by your side. I feel that staying by young master's side and helping you deal with some matters that are within my power is enough. Moreover, is there anything better than staying by young master's side to establish a career? Wei Anfang said. Wang Chong couldn't help but laugh. Wei Anfang, on the other hand, gave a faint smile. He wasn't lying. After Wang Chong was conferred the title of Marquis, his status had soared, and Wei Anfang was now highly regarded by the clan. And it wasn't an exaggeration to say that Wei Anfang's position was currently being coveted by countless people. After all, not everyone could be trusted by Wang Chong and stand so close to him. As the two were talking, they suddenly heard hurried footsteps. Wang Chong subconsciously turned his head and saw a familiar figure rapidly approaching the mountain. Instructor Zhao? Wang Chong's eyebrows shot up in surprise, but he quickly walked forward with a smile. You rascal, why didn't you come to greet us first? The first to speak was actually Zhao Qianxiu. Striding forward, he punched Wang Chong's shoulder and burst into laughter. How is that possible? The first person I looked for was you, but they said that you had already left the training camp. I asked them where you went, but no one knew. Wang Chong laughed heartily. Not minding it at all, he hugged Zhao Qianxiu tightly. Looking at Zhao Qianxiu, warmth welled up in Wang Chong's heart. In the entire training camp, the one whom Wang Chong felt the closest to was Zhao Qianxiu. Even now, he still remembered how Zhao Qianxiu had thrown a tiger into his room in the middle of the night. It was a pity that the Gogurians were trying to assassinate him then. Right, Instructor Zhou, you're here too? Wang Chong looked at Instructor Zhou Huang, who was standing behind Zhao Qianxiu, and suddenly, he realized something. It's rare for the two of you to appear together. Speak, what do you need my help with? Rascal, you're still as cunning as ever. I can't hide anything from you. Zhao Qianxiu and Zhou Huang glanced at one another with bitter smiles on their faces. They were intending to talk about it later, but they didn't expect Wang Chong's eyes to be so sharp. With a single glance, he saw through their intentions. In truth, it's nothing major. It's just that a princess from the Abbasid Caliphate has come and stated that she wants to join Kunwa training camp and your Deflecting Blade Manor. Zhao Qianxiu smiled bitterly. Chapter 684. On the summit, Wang Chong and Wei Anfang glanced at each other, the shock in each other's eyes. An Arabian princess? Wang Chong came back to his senses and imperceptibly creased his brow. Is this an order from King Qi? So when they say that you weren't in the training camp, you actually went to see him? Wang Chong had never imagined that Zhao Qianxiu would seek him out for such a matter. The Arabian Empire was to the west of the western regions, extremely far from the Tang dynasty. Wang Chong had no recollection of such a thing happening in his last life. But now that he thought about it, He remembered that an Arabian princess had paid a visit to the Tang dynasty, but she had left very quickly, probably no more than a few days ago. Wang Chong had never seen her before, nor did he know what she looked like, and he had never heard of an Arabian princess entering the training camp, much less stating that she wanted to join his deflecting blade manor. It would have been great if she was from King Qi's side. Zhao Qianqiu's voice was tinged with deep helplessness. The establishment of the 3 great training camps was His Majesty's will. If it really was King Qi's will, I could have just used His Majesty's order to brush it off. Even if King Qi were to get angry, it wouldn't matter much. But the one asking for my help is the Chamberlain of Dependencies. And it's a senior who helped me when I was in dire straits. What was the most difficult thing to return in this world? A favor. And it was when you were in dire straits. Moreover, the Chamberlain of Dependencies was in charge of foreign diplomatic missions and receiving them. The Arabian princess was indeed within their scope of responsibility. The Chamberlain of Dependencies naturally had to do its utmost to satisfy the other party's request. In this aspect, the Chamberlain of Dependencies was doing this for the sake of the imperial court and the Tang dynasty. Zhao Qianqiu found it very difficult to refuse such a request. Wang Chong, if it's too difficult, then forget it. At worst, I'll just explain it to that senior. Zhao Qianqiu said. Difficult? Why should it be difficult? Wang Chong glanced at Wei Anfang and smiled. It's rare for an Arabian princess to want to join our deflecting blade manor. So why should we refuse? Anfang, you've probably never met an Arabian princess before. No. Wei Anfang smiled faintly. There was not much change in his expression. The Arabs are completely different from us. They have hooked noses and deep eyes, but their women are extremely beautiful. The Arabian princess must also be extremely beautiful. Wei Anfang said this, but the expression in his eyes was the complete opposite. Now that he was standing by Wang Chong's side, he was slowly being valued by the family. In comparison, he was only interested in one thing now, and that was to stay by Wang Chong's side and establish a greater cause. Zhao Qianqiu and Zhou Huang didn't expect Wang Chong to agree so readily either, and they were delighted. A table of delicacies was prepared, and the host and guests enjoyed themselves until Zhao Qianqiu and Zhou Huang left. Young master, are you really going to let the Arabian princess enter our deflecting blade manor? After Zhao Qianqiu left, Wei Anfang's expression suddenly turned grave. Entering the Kunwa training camp is not a problem. This is the arrangement of the imperial court, and we have no choice. But why did that Arabian princess insist on entering our deflecting blade manor? Your subordinate feels that she has come with ill intentions, and those with good intentions won't come. It's still too early to say anything. We haven't even met her yet, so we'll know what her goal is once we meet her. Wang Chong's eyes glimmered as he faintly smiled. He had a few thoughts about this Arabian princess, but he would only be able to understand them once he met her. I'll leave this place to you. I'm going to rest for a while. After saying a few words to Wei Anfang, Wang Chong quickly made his way up the stairs to his own residence. Creak, creak. The door was pushed open, and just as Wang Chong was about to step into the room, a gust of wind blew in his face, and a figure hurriedly pounced toward him. Ancestor, why did you only come now? I waited for you for so long. Li Jingzhong grabbed Wang Chong's sleeve, his eyes burning with anxiety. Haha, aren't I here now? And I've only just arrived at Kunwa training camp. If I don't explain some things, wouldn't it be too suspicious? Wang Chong, on the other hand, was unruffled. After closing the door, he walked straight to the red sandalwood table in the room, picked up a fine teapot, poured himself a cup of fragrant tea, and slowly sipped it. My ancestor, you're not in a hurry, but the 5th prince and I are on the verge of losing our grip. Right now, the 1st prince and the 2nd prince are keeping an especially close watch on us. The 5th prince has no chance to leave the palace, and I only just managed to shake them off with great difficulty. If I miss this chance, I don't know when I'll get it again. Li Jingzhong spoke quickly and anxiously, as if he wanted nothing more than to say everything in a single breath. Tell me, what's the matter that's so urgent that you have to invite me here to deceive others? Wang Chong slightly creased his brow. Outsiders thought that he had returned to Kunwa training camp for the sake of his deflecting blade manner. But very few people knew that he had actually received a letter from the fifth prince. Marquis, I'm afraid you still don't know. You look calm on the outside, but the inside of the palace is already in chaos. The first prince, the second prince, and the third prince are all trying to win the hearts of the people and rope in the officials and generals. If the first prince, the second prince, and the third prince succeed, then the fifth prince really won't have any chance. But this matter is no small matter, and the fifth prince doesn't have much of an opinion either. Thus, he specially sent me to consult Marquis. Now that the fifth prince has finally gained some influence in the palace, and some people are willing to submit to His Highness, this matter cannot be delayed. Otherwise, they will all be roped in by the first prince and the others. Li Jingzhong's forehead was beaded with sweat. As he spoke, he took out a letter from his sleeve and passed it over. Marquis, this is the list of names. I ask that Marquis help me see who can be used and who cannot. Marquis has a close relationship with the fifth prince, so I ask that Marquis help me to the end. After saying this, Li Jingzhong deeply bowed. After the victory in the southwest, Wang Chong had been made a marquis, and the Son of Heaven had bestowed upon him a courtesy name. The current Wang Chong possessed extraordinary weight in the palace, and he was the fifth prince's greatest pillar of support. This was especially the case last time when he had an audience with His Majesty. All the princes had accused Li Heng of having ulterior motives, for concealing the fact that he clearly knew martial arts. In the end, Li Heng had followed Wang Chong's instructions and smoothly survived this calamity, causing Li Heng to place an extreme trust in Wang Chong. Even Li Jingzhong was envious of this trust, but he did not dare to say anything. Roping in officials? Wang Chong's brow furrowed, but he did not immediately take the list from Li Jingzhong. Li Jingzhong, do you know what you're doing? His Majesty loathes the princes of the palace forming factions. If His Majesty were to learn of this matter, it would be a capital offense. Have all of you forgotten the matters of the previous dynasty? At the end, Wang Chong's expression was stern. In every dynasty, no matter which emperor it was, even the wise Gaozu or Taizong of this dynasty, they all loathed the princes of the palaces forming factions for personal gain. Quite a few princes had been deposed for this reason. Wang Chong had not expected the fifth prince to seek him out for this matter. If this matter was not handled properly, everyone involved, including himself, would be punished. Li Jingzhong, didn't I say that you should properly assist the fifth prince? Speak. Did you instigate this? Wang Chong's voice was harsh, his gaze as sharp as a sword, ready to cut Li Jingzhong in two. Thump. Seeing the killing intent in Wang Chong's eyes, Li Jingzhong's body trembled, and he fell to his knees. Marquis, I'm innocent. This really has nothing to do with me. His Highness is slowly gaining attention in the palace, and is at a time when he is full of ambition. How could I instigate him? Although it has always been taboo for the princes to form cliques for personal gain, which princes, including the current sage emperor, have been able to do so? Wang Chong fell silent at these words. Li Jingzhong was a treacherous official. Although he was slick and cunning, even Wang Chong could not refute him on this matter. Every dynasty was taboo for the princes to collude with the court officials and the generals at the borders. But how many people could do it? It was just a matter of who hid it better. The current emperor was like this. The late emperor was like this. Emperor Taizong was like this. And all the great and bold emperors in history were like this. And without this boldness, they would not be able to become a true dragon. Marquis, this matter is urgent. I ask Marquis to help His Highness no matter what. Seeing Wang Chong's expression soften, Li Jingzhong immediately raised his head and struck while the iron was hot. Don't be happy too early. If I find out that you are the one instigating him, you will die. Even if I kill you, I believe that no one will speak up for you, including the fifth prince. Wang Chong said coldly. Li Jingzhong's heart turned cold. He quickly lowered his head and did not dare to say anything else. Whoosh! Wang Chong took the letter from Li Jingzhong's hand and shook it. He opened it and carefully read it. The atmosphere in the room suddenly became heavy. Although it was only a thin piece of paper, everyone knew that if this letter was leaked, It would inevitably cause a storm of blood in the capital. Who knew how many people would lose their families, and their heads would roll? Although Wang Chong spoke casually, his expression immediately became extremely solemn the moment he took the letter. Li Jingzhong lay on the ground, not daring to even breathe loudly. There was a long list of names on the letter. Every single one of them was an important official in the court and held extraordinary weight. As Wang Chong read through it, he was secretly shocked. The fifth prince's influence seemed to be much greater than he had imagined. The fact that he was able to obtain so many people's acknowledgement and allegiance proved that the fifth prince had quite a bit of influence in the palace. However, as he read, Wang Chong quickly frowned. "Marquis, did something happen?" Li Jingzhong observed his expression and immediately asked, "Are the first prince's spies on this list? You're quite smart." Chapter 685. The struggle for the throne had always been the cruelest and most callous affair of all dynasties. It was normal for princes to assign spies to each other to keep an eye on each other, and the dangers involved were not something that outsiders could understand. The slightest carelessness could lead to a horrible death. This was probably why the fifth prince had sought out Wang Chong to advise him. Du Hongjian, Wei Xiaoyu Cui Yi Lu Jianjin Li Han. Wang Chong listed off a long list of names, causing Li Jingzhong's face to wildly pale. "What, Marquis? Is there a problem with all of these people? Can they not be used?" Li Jingzhong had only just handed over this list, but he had not expected so many people to be of no use. But Wang Chong's next words took him by surprise. "Tell His Highness that there's basically no problem with these people, and that he can use them. As for the others, there's still room for discussion," Wang Chong indifferently said. "Ah." Li Jingzhong raised his head and was instantly dumbfounded. He could understand if there was a problem, but how could Wang Chong be so sure that these people could be used? "Just do as I say," Wang Chong indifferently said, not even turning his head, but he had seen through Li Jingzhong's deepest thoughts. Li Jingzhong's heart thumped, and he hurriedly lowered his head, not daring to look. Wang Chong naturally knew why these people could be used, whether it was Du Hongjian, Wei Xiaoyu, or Cui Yi. These people would all be the fifth prince's direct subordinates when he ascended to the throne. These people should not have appeared at this time. In the future, they would only be at Li Heng's side because of various opportunities. But since history had changed and the fifth prince had the heart to raise his own wings, these people could be arranged at fifth prince Li Heng's side ahead of time. At the very least, in terms of loyalty, there was no problem with these people being of use. In addition, as Wang Chong spoke, he paused for a moment. With a wave of his hand, a weasel hair brush on the brush rack on the table was pulled by an invisible force. With a whoosh, it flew out of the brush rack and touched the ink stone on the table for a moment before it landed in Wang Chong's hand. "Tell His Highness that all the people I've crossed off the list are not to be used. Stay as far away from them as possible. Lu Ji, Wang Zeng Li Yong. No matter how your highness likes these people, you must alienate them as much as possible." In addition, the young craftsman of the army Wei Lan, the vice minister of war Wei Ji. "How is it?" Li Jingzhong suddenly gathered his courage and raised his head, his eyes full of hope. Does His Highness value them very much?" Wang Chong put down the list in his hand, looked down at Li Jingzhong and sneered. "This," Li Jingzhong hesitated. "Is it because they're from House Wei?" Wang Chong said calmly. "Yes." Li Jingzhong knew that nothing could be hidden from Wang Chong, and hurriedly nodded. Among the many noble families of the Tang dynasty, House Wei could truly be said to be the number one noble family. Its status was far above that of House Bai and House Zhao. It was a truly prestigious and invisible noble family. House Wang was known as a noble family of ministers and generals, and Wang Chong's grandfather was a famous sage of the Tang dynasty, highly respected and renowned throughout the world. He had once made great contributions to the throne and supported the country, and the several generations of friendship with the king of Song's lineage made House Wang a colossus in the capital. However, even House Wang could not compare to House Wei. The reason was simple. House Wang had only risen to prominence in the last few decades, while House Wei was an ancient noble family with 400 to 500 years of history. As early as the Sui dynasty, House Wei was known as the #1 noble family in the Sui dynasty. Emperor Wen of the Sui dynasty had been able to smoothly establish the Sui dynasty precisely because he had the help of Wei Shaoquan, the Grand Marshal of the Northern Zhou army. In short, House Wei's foundation was the true #1 aristocratic family. As disciples of the Wei clan, Wei Lan and Wei Ji had significant influence, so it was not strange that 5th Prince Li Heng wanted to recruit them. Tell the 5th Prince that anyone can take this name list, but not Wei Lan and Wei Ji. Wang Chong held the name list in his hand and made a prompt decision. If he wants to hear my opinion, then this is my opinion. Why? Li Jingzhong abruptly raised his head, unable to conceal the shock in his eyes. Are you doubting my judgment? Wang Chong said coldly. His eyes were cold and emotionless. It was hard to change the nature of this vile minister. He had a strong desire for power. However, if he was still a little restless, if he still wanted to play politics in front of him, if he didn't put away those thoughts, then there was no need to wait for the future. He could kill him now. The current Li Jingzhong had not yet established his future contributions to the throne, nor did he have the weight at the 5th Prince Li Heng's side. Even if he killed him now, he would just be killing an insignificant middle-aged eunuch. He was confident that Li Heng would not fall out with him because of this. This lowly one wouldn't dare. Li Jingzhong saw the cold light in Wang Chong's eyes and immediately sensed something. His heart trembled, and he hurriedly lowered his head, not daring to say anything else. I can understand that Your Highness wants to recruit the Wei clan. After all, the Wei clan truly is a clan with extremely deep reserves. However, the Wei clan is the Wei clan, and Wei Lan and Wei Ji are Wei Lan and Wei Ji. I do not want Your Highness to reject the Wei clan, but Wei Lan and Wei Ji. Wang Chong indifferently said as he held the name list in his hand. Marquis, do you feel that these two aren't very useful? Li Jingzhong probed. You're quite smart. Wang Chong did not deny it. As he looked forward, a hint of reminiscence appeared in his eyes. If he had not intervened, Wei Lan and Wei Ji really might have joined Li Heng's side. Although these two came from the capital's Wei clan, they were rash and skilled at messing things up. In this aspect, they were far less steady and composed than their big brother Wei Jian. Wang Chong clearly remembered that Li Heng, the master of the resurgence of the Tang dynasty, had taken so long to ascend to the throne because of Wei Lan and Wei Ji. It was precisely because these two weren't good enough at accomplishing anything, and were good enough at ruining things that Li Heng, who had escaped a calamity in a future political storm, was implicated by these two, incurring the wrath of the Holy Emperor, who believed that Li Heng had plotted to kill his father, and was unworthy of inheriting the throne. As a result, Li Heng's succession to the throne was delayed by at least 2 or 3 years, and to the Central Plains, which lacked time the most, this delay was fatal. No matter how great Li Heng's ambitions were, in the end, he could only die with regret on the dragon throne. When the leader of the Great Tang's resurgence, as well as the last emperor, died in Taiji Palace, countless people in the Central Plains wept bitter tears and lamented the loss. Now that Wang Chong had been reborn, he naturally would not allow this sort of thing to happen again. Wei Lan and Wei Jian had almost caused Li Heng to be deposed as a commoner. If he allowed these two to remain at Li Heng's side, he would truly be nurturing a tiger that would invite disaster. Stand up. In any case, tell His Highness that only those who can endure will gain. His Highness's wings are still not fully grown, and he has only just begun to show signs of improvement. For His Highness to get involved with a great clan like the Wei clan is more harmful than beneficial. There is a saying that goes too much is as bad as not enough. And this is precisely the case. Wang Chong said. This servant understands. Li Jingzhong stood up with his head lowered, not daring to say anything else. Wang Chong had defeated Daluan Ruozhen and Huashu Wuzong in the southwest, and he had been conferred the title of Young Marquis, the son of Heaven's disciple. Everyone in the empire, in and out of court, regarded him as a future imperial great general. In terms of weight, although Wei Lan and Wei Jian were known as disciples of the Wei clan, they were far inferior to Wang Chong. This was also why 5th Prince Li Heng regarded Wang Chong with such importance, that he would even give Wang Chong a list of subordinates and followers that he wanted to recruit. In terms of weight, Wang Chong was without a doubt number one in Li Heng's heart. Take this list. Soldiers are valued for quality, not quantity. In His Highness's current situation, just these people on this list are enough. It is not advisable to have too many, otherwise His Divine Majesty will be displeased. As Wang Chong spoke, he handed over the list of names that he had corrected. This servant will tell His Highness. Li Jingzhong respectfully replied. Just when Wang Chong believed that he would leave, Li Jingzhong stood in front of him with his head lowered, showing no intention of leaving. What? Is there something else? Wang Chong asked in surprise. Yes. Li Jingzhong clenched his teeth and finally spoke. This servant has a private matter that Marquis must agree to no matter what. Oh! Wang Chong was surprised. This eunuch was quite bold. Even though he knew that this was a private matter, he still dared to ask for his consent. Marquis, although this is a private request from this servant, it is not for the servant's sake, but for His Highness the Fifth Prince. Li Jingzhong gathered his courage and said, Fifth Prince? Wang Chong was surprised. Speak, what is it? His Highness has recently fallen in love with a woman named Du Jiqi. In private, they exchanged keepsakes, and even pledged to marry each other. But Marquis, you know that the descendants of the royal family are different from ordinary people. Whether they take concubines or concubines, they must have His Majesty's approval. They can't pledge to marry an ordinary woman. In the previous dynasty, when the current sage emperor was still young, he once favored a Taichung Lurun, causing the previous emperor to be furious. He believed that the Taichung Lurun indulged in women and was unworthy of his position, causing him to almost be stripped of his position as crown prince. There are precedents for all of this. His Highness has just started to improve in the palace, but he did such a thing. He is destroying his own wall. Moreover, for the sake of that woman, His Highness has been less diligent in his studies and martial arts recently. Now, even the teachers hired by the Holy Emperor for the princes are quite critical of him. As Li Jingzhong spoke, his face was full of anxiety and unconcealable worry. Marquis, now the only one who can persuade him and make him listen is you. Please help to persuade His Highness no matter what. Otherwise he will be in big trouble. Chapter 686. Buzz. Wang Chong instantly fell silent, his expression turning grave. He had never imagined that Li Jingzhong would want to talk to him about this matter. The fifth prince lusted after women? How could this be? Li Heng was the future master of the Tang dynasty's resurgence. In Wang Chong's impression, Li Heng was a diligent and conscientious man who wholeheartedly wanted to restore the golden age of the Tang dynasty. There was no way he was someone who lusted after women. But what shocked Wang Chong the most was the name that Li Jingzhong had uttered. Du Jiqi. How could it be her? Wang Chong narrowed his eyes as these thoughts flitted through his mind. Wang Chong rarely remembered the name of a woman, especially one that he had never met before. But the name of Du Jiqi was definitely familiar to Wang Chong. In truth, there were very few people in Wang Chong's memories who did not know of this woman. This woman had once caused a prince of the imperial palace to be deposed by the Holy Emperor. And the reason for this was that he had indulged in women and neglected his studies. And this was not the end. After the investigation, it was discovered that the woman that the prince deeply loved was a spy sent by another prince of the imperial palace. Although that woman had never been willing to say it, everyone in the capital knew that the first prince, the second prince, and the third prince were the spies. And that prince, because his love for her ran too deep, refused to believe that she was a spy even in his death. Later on, when the two of them were separated, his heart was filled with depression, and he ultimately hanged himself. This matter had caused a huge uproar in the capital. Because one of the princes had died, Wang Chong clearly remembered that the woman's name was Du Jiqi. Although Wang Chong did not know if the two were the same person, this matter was definitely suspicious. Marquis. The room was quiet. Li Jingzhong raised his head and boldly asked. He had no idea what had happened. Ever since he said those words, Wang Chong had been standing there motionless, thinking about something. This was completely different from the impression that Wang Chong had given him. Li Jingzhong didn't know what had happened. Moreover, Wang Chong's reaction was much more serious than he had imagined, which made him feel a little uneasy. Li Jingzhong, let me ask you, is it true that the fifth prince has fallen in love with a woman? Wang Chong said in a deep voice. It wasn't that he didn't believe Li Jingzhong, but this had never happened in history, at least not in the history that he was familiar with. And Li Heng didn't seem like that sort of person. Marquis, this matter is absolutely true. In front of Marquis, even if I had 1,000 guts, I would definitely not dare to lie. Hearing Wang Chong ask about serious matters, Li Jingzhong quickly answered seriously. This is no small matter. We must resolve it as soon as possible. It's better to do it sooner than later. His Highness has always trusted you, so we can only rely on you, Marquis. The room was deathly silent. Wang Chong's brow was tightly creased, and Li Jingzhong lowered his head, not daring to breathe too loudly. Under this invisible pressure, Li Jingzhong felt himself trembling in fear. Just when he was on the verge of breaking down, he heard the voice he had been anticipating for so long. I understand, Wang Chong indifferently said. He slowly raised his gaze, his eyes turning sharp. Leave this matter to me. Li Jingzhong didn't have the courage to lie, at least not yet. This could only mean one thing. History had already changed. Moreover, now that he thought about it, Li Heng's current age just happened to be at the age when he was experiencing his first awakening of love. He was still far from being that revered ruler of the future. At this age, when he was experiencing his first awakening of love, it wasn't strange for him to delay his studies and martial arts when he met a girl he liked. In normal circumstances, Wang Chong wouldn't interfere. As long as Li Heng exercised restraint and maintained an appropriate distance, there wouldn't be much of a problem. But if that girl really was who he imagined her to be, everything would be different. Li Heng's path as a true dragon might come to an end at any moment because of his relationship with that girl. Although the Holy Emperor himself had once favored a man who was too cheerful and had almost been deposed because of this, it was precisely for this reason that the Holy Emperor was even harsher on his other princes, and it was a taboo for them to indulge in women. This was something that the imperial clan had never changed, and not even Wang Chong could change it. Li Jingzhong quickly left. After staying in Deflecting Blade Manor for a few more days, Wang Chong also left. There were some things that should be done sooner rather than later. If that girl really was who he imagined her to be. Time passed slowly. A few days later, at sunset, a golden carriage quietly left the imperial palace. It did not attract anyone's attention. Jiqi, I've made you suffer in this period of time. Haven't you always wanted to leave the palace? Today, I'll take you out for a good stroll. In the carriage, a handsome young man in casual clothes gently embraced a beautiful woman with a graceful figure, a gentle temperament, and a gentle and moving temperament. His expression was extremely gentle. This woman was around 19 years old, her skin as white as mutton fat jade. She had a charming and alluring appearance that would make anyone want to love her. But the woman's head was slightly lowered, her brow furrowed in worry. But Your Highness, the first prince and second prince are both keeping an eye on Your Highness. If they learn that Your Highness has taken me out of the palace without permission, they might report this to the Holy Emperor and do something to Your Highness. What's there to be afraid of? I haven't taken a wife or a concubine, nor have I indulged in women. Moreover, I only love you. Even if Imperial Father knew, he would only say that I'm devoted, not that I'm promiscuous. So how could he blame me? Li Heng didn't care. Men married and women married were the laws of the world, and he had never married before, so how could he be promiscuous? But I still feel that this isn't appropriate. The beautiful woman gripped her handkerchief with her right hand, but her brow was still furrowed. I know that Your Highness loves me, but Jiqi is not willing to implicate Your Highness because of my own good. Let's go back. Haha, my foolish cheer. Do you really think that I would dare to leave the palace without doing anything? The teachers were furious this time, and punished me to copy 600 chapters of Zhengzi in 3 days. I've already arranged for someone to wear my clothes, and take my place in the palace. Not even first imperial brother or second imperial brother, no matter how formidable they are, could have imagined that I had already changed into casual clothes and left the palace with those study companions. Li Heng faintly smiled. The princes of the palace all had study companions, and these study companions were assuredly the scions of the noble clans. During the day, they would enter the palace to study, but at night, they would have to leave. Li Heng had used this chance to stealthily leave the imperial palace. Moreover, as long as we return to the palace on time tomorrow, no one will notice. Li Heng smiled as he extended 2 fingers and lightly stroked the beautiful woman's hair. As he gazed at her blushing face, his heart softened. He had never been easily moved by anyone, but the beauty in front of him was different. She was gentle, generous, well-educated, and considerate. She did not like life in the palace, but for his sake, she was willing to put herself down and accompany him in the palace. Just like this time, when he had finally found a chance to take her out of the palace. All she wanted was for him to return, so that he wouldn't be a burden to her. When he thought of this, Li Heng's eyes softened even more. It was rare to meet one's confidant in life. Since it was so rare to meet one, what was a little risk? That's right, Jiqi. I've always wanted to give you something. But the things in the palace are too tacky, so how could they be worthy of you? Thus, I've never given you anything. But this time is different. The young Marquis gave me something that I feel is most suitable for you. Li Heng suddenly thought of something and reached his right hand into his sleeve. With a light pull, something appeared in his hand. It was a simple and elegant white jade phoenix hairpin. This hairpin was different from the hairpins in the palace. It was simple and unadorned, but it was definitely not simple. The hairpin had many holes in it and was carved in white into the shape of a jade phoenix. It was extremely beautiful. Ah, what a beautiful jade hairpin! She was still a woman, so when she saw the white jade phoenix hairpin in Li Heng's hand, her eyes brightened, and she couldn't help but gasp. Which girl didn't like jewelry? Moreover, it was such an antique, exquisite, and not vulgar item? No, Your Highness. This item is definitely extremely valuable. I cannot take it. If I use it, others will definitely suspect Your Highness and criticize me. But the woman quickly lowered her head and firmly shook her head. Fifth Prince Li Heng did not have much power in the palace. Although he did not have to worry about food or clothing, he did not use much. Moreover, the Holy Emperor was extremely strict with the princes. He strictly forbade the princes from being extravagant or competing with others in wealth. Thus, even though Li Heng was a prince, he could not afford this priceless white jade phoenix hairpin. If she suddenly wore this item, it would definitely attract a lot of gossip. Haha, Jiqi, you don't have to worry about this. I've always been friends with the young Marquis, and it's not a big deal for friends to exchange gifts. In addition, once I save up enough money, I'll give it to him. Just treat it as me buying it from him. Li Heng smiled. A strange light flashed through the woman's eyes. After a moment's hesitation, she finally gave up. Come, Jiqi, let me help you put it on. Li Heng looked at the beauty before him, his eyes growing even gentler. Although the clan was large, he only had eyes for her, no one else. Jiqi, you're so beautiful. Li Heng couldn't help but sigh in praise at the beauty with the white jade hairpin. The beauty became even more bashful, her head lowering even further under Li Heng's gaze. Truly beautiful. Chapter 687. Your Highness, we've arrived. As he was lost in thought, the driver's voice came from outside the carriage. Li Heng faintly smiled and quickly regained his composure. Let's go. Let's go to the gold silk shop first. I've always felt that the clothes in the palace are too extravagant and unworthy of you. So I invited the #1 tailor of the Tang dynasty, Madame Ya, to personally tailor them for you. As Li Heng spoke, he suddenly picked up Du Jiqi, opened the carriage door, and alighted amidst the cries of surprise from the beauty. Dusk was falling over the capital of the Great Tang, but the golden brocade shop, which was known as the #1 silk shop in the capital, was still brightly lit. The shopkeeper of the huge golden brocade shop personally closed the door and declined all customers, only receiving a pair of guests. From dusk to daybreak, Li Heng took Du Jiqi on a tour of the capital. The Celestial Street Tea Market, Shoan Square, Zhong'an Bridge, Randing Monastery. They played all the way until daybreak. Only then did Li Heng and Du Jiqi sit in a carriage, mingling with the scholars who accompanied them in their studies, and return to his own palace. Chia, I'm a little tired. In a while, I'll go pay my respects to teacher. I'll probably be back a little late, so you should rest first. If I still haven't returned by the time you wake up, you can play here for a while. I've already ordered that no one will stop you from going anywhere in the residence, but you mustn't go to my study, Li Heng said. It's fine. No matter how late it is, I'll be waiting for you, Du Jiqi gently said. In addition, you're also tired. I'll prepare some fruits for you. When you go pay your respects to teacher, you can eat them on the way. Li Heng nodded. His heart warmed, and his eyes grew even gentler. To be able to meet such a considerate beauty was enough for him to live the rest of his life. Li Heng quickly left with the fruits Du Jiqi had prepared. Soon, only Du Jiqi and the palace maids were left in the palace. I'm a little tired. There's no need to take care of me. All of you can go and rest. Du Jiqi waved her hand. Yes. The palace maids quickly dispersed. Du Jiqi also seemed to be a little tired. She brushed away the hair on her temples, walked softly to the side of the bed, and lay down slowly. After an unknown period of time, all the palace maids had left, and the room was silent. Suddenly, a light breeze blew past, and the curtains rolled up. With a flash of light, an exquisite figure suddenly appeared beside the bed. It was Du Jiqi, who was originally sleeping soundly. In just a moment, Du Jiqi was still the same Du Jiqi, but her expression and temperament had completely changed. She was a completely different person. If the original Du Jiqi was demure, graceful, gentle, weak, and lovable, then the current Du Jiqi was like an unsheathed longsword. Her aura was sharp, and her ability was revealed in full. Xiao, Du Jiqi warily examined her surroundings before leaping out of the window like a leopard. In just a few seconds, she had arrived at the study not far from Li Heng's palace. Found it, make a copy, and quickly hand it to the first prince. After searching around, Du Jiqi's eyes flashed, and she quickly spotted a thin list of names on the table. Taking a brush from a nearby brush, she quickly made a copy and left. Throughout the entire process, she did not notice that in another place not far away, a pair of bright eyes had been silently staring at her. Flap flap. A few moments later, a messenger pigeon took off from 5th Prince Li Heng's palace. This messenger pigeon did not leave the imperial palace. Instead, after flying for some distance, it quickly landed in the first prince's palace. Days passed, and 7 days later, Your Highness, something terrible has happened. His Majesty has ordered for you to immediately go. The first prince, second prince, and third prince are all present. The grand tutor, grand preceptor, and all the teachers of the palace are also present. Early in the morning, when the world was at its most tranquil, a voice broke the silence. A guard barged into the 5th prince's resting palace. What? The 5th prince's face froze in shock as he pushed aside his pillow and sat up on the bed. Your Highness, you should quickly go. His Majesty is furious, and everyone is waiting there. Your Highness, please act quickly. Jiro, rest first. I'll be right back. With no time to say anything else, Li Heng got off the bed, put on a set of clothes, and left. Deep within the imperial palace, Perpetual Fortune Palace. When 5th Prince Li Heng pushed open the door and walked in, the atmosphere was solemn. High up in the hall, the Holy Emperor sat motionlessly, his face as gloomy as still water. To his left and right, the Grand Preceptor and Grand Tutor, who rarely appeared, stood on either side, their expressions equally solemn. Looking further down, the teachers of the princes were all standing in a row with nervous looks on their faces. It seemed like they were feeling very uneasy, and in front of the teachers were the princes of the various palaces. The first prince, the second prince, the third prince. These princes, who were normally very difficult to find in the palace, were all gathered here. When Li Heng pushed open the door and walked in, everyone looked at him. Some sneered, some were proud, some were mocking, some were sympathetic, and some were trembling in fear. Li Heng scanned the hall, seeing those mocking gazes waiting for a good show. He vaguely understood something, but there was no fear in his heart. Your son Li Heng pays respects to Imperial Father. With a wave of his sleeve, Li Heng strode forward, respectfully bowed, and then kneeled in front of the hall, his expression calm and unruffled. Your Highness, His Majesty is here. Why haven't you kneeled down and admitted your wrongs? Li Heng's teacher, Su Xiao, immediately shouted before Li Heng could kneel, a very uneasy expression on his face. Teacher Su, His Majesty is here, so how can you speak? Are you trying to exonerate His Fifth Highness? Grand Tutor Chen Yong's voice came from the side, his expression stern. The Grand Tutor was the head of the teachers, and had the highest status among the teachers of the princes. His words made Su Xiao's heart clench, and he immediately shut up. As he looked at Li Heng, he couldn't help but give a deep sigh. He had personally taught this fifth prince, watched him grow up step by step. He had managed to watch him grow bit by bit in the palace, gradually gaining the attention of the Holy Emperor, but he had never imagined that this would happen. All my previous efforts have gone to waste. Su Xiao deeply sighed and closed his eyes, unable to bear to see what would happen next. Heng, or we will give you a chance. In the hall, the Holy Emperor's face was ashen, but his voice was abnormally calm. Tell us, just who have you recruited, and which civil and military officials have you colluded with? The Holy Emperor's words caused the atmosphere in the hall to become 10 times more solemn. Everyone, including the Grand Tutors, the teachers of the princes, and the princes, fell silent and even began to breathe cautiously. All eyes were focused on Li Heng. Forming a clique and colluding with important officials of the court had always been a major taboo in the palace. It was tantamount to rebellion, a heavy crime. Although everyone had been doing this since ancient times, it was one thing to do it in secret, and another to be caught by others. Just the fact that Li Heng had formed a clique was enough to completely disqualify him from fighting for the throne. It would already be quite good if he wasn't sent to the border to live as an ordinary commoner. Recently, Fifth Prince Li Heng had been slowly gaining the attention of the Holy Emperor, causing many princes to feel uneasy. But now they could all relax. Imperial Father, your son has not colluded with any civil or military officials. Imperial Father, please investigate. To everyone's surprise, Li Heng stood up and clasped his hands, his expression calm and composed, neither servile nor overbearing. Li Heng's words caused the Holy Emperor's face to darken. Your Highness, there is no need for your Highness to quibble in front of the Holy Emperor. If there were no evidence, His Holiness would not have called your Highness here. Your Highness should quickly come clean to avoid further enraging His Holiness. An elderly voice came from the side. Grand Preceptor Pei Guangting's temples were graying, and he suddenly sighed. Pei Guangting was already 70 or 80 years old. Adhering to the teachings of the Confucian school of self-restraint, he was highly respected in the court. Although his achievements on the battlefield and his status in the court were inferior to that of the virtuous minister Wang Juling, in terms of seniority and prestige, even Wang Chang's grandfather Wang Juling had to respectfully address him as Lord Pei. In the reign of the previous emperor, Pei Guangting had been highly esteemed, and in the current dynasty, his status was even higher, and he was deeply trusted and respected by the Holy Emperor. Pei Guangting was already very old, and he usually lived in seclusion, never receiving guests. Even the princes of the palaces rarely saw him. But this time, Fifth Prince Li Heng had colluded with important ministers of the court and formed a clique for personal gain, violating a great taboo of the palace. This was a heavy crime that even Pei Guangting had been alarmed by. According to the rules of the palace, Fifth Prince Li Heng was probably completely crippled. Lord Grand Preceptor, it is not that Li Heng is quibbling, but that Li Heng has never done anything. Since it's a groundless crime, why should Li Heng admit to it? Li Heng was neither servile nor overbearing, arguing with reason. Even when facing this esteemed Grand Preceptor, he showed no fear. The teachers of the princes couldn't help but shake their heads and sigh at Li Heng's words. Li Heng's teacher Su Xiao felt his heart sink to the bottom of a lake. Quibbling at a time like this is truly asking for trouble. Near the wall, second Prince Li Yao sneered. To dare argue with Grand Preceptor Pei Guangting in front of Imperial Father? Is this fellow an idiot? Does he not know that Imperial Father has always respected and trusted Grand Preceptor Pei? Third Prince Li Ju looked at Li Heng, his eyes brimming with derision. The Holy Emperor had always revered loyalty, filial piety, and fraternity. By doing this, Li Heng was only lowering his image in the Holy Emperor's mind. This was asking for trouble. Li Ju could already guess what Li Heng's fate would be. Ha, fifth Imperial brother, what need is there for this? He clearly knows that Imperial Father is a perceptive person, and would never have summoned him without conclusive evidence. What meaning is there in denying it now? Across from Li Yao and Li Ju, on the wall to the left of the Holy Emperor, the 17-year-old 10th Prince Li Qi shook his head, his eyes brimming with sympathy. Just like Li Heng, he had been unsuccessful in the palace, and had been suppressed by the princes of the other palaces. For this reason of the princes, he was the only one who deeply sympathized with Li Heng. But that was all. Li Heng's attitude toward the Holy Emperor and the Grand Preceptor had left him deeply unsatisfied. Arguing with Imperial Father and the Grand Preceptor, while clearly knowing that they had something to use against him, was not a wise move. The fourth prince, sixth prince, seventh prince, and the other princes all sneered. Just based on Li Heng's words today, it would be very difficult to resolve this matter peacefully. Bastard! As expected, upon hearing Li Heng's words, the Holy Emperor exploded into a thunderous rage, causing the entire hall to hum and tremble. A terrifying pressure shrouded the air, causing all the princes to lower their heads in fear. Unfilial son, even at this stage you're still quibbling. Look at what this is. Chapter 688. The two thin sheets of paper fell to the ground, but they seemed to weigh 1,000 jun, instantly attracting the attention of everyone in the hall. Cold laughter could be heard in the hall, and everyone could already see Li Heng's fate. Li Heng said nothing. After a few moments of silence, he kneeled down and picked up the two sheets of paper. These were two letters. One of them was from a border general of the Tang dynasty, the Inspector General of Baiting Zhangyang. Anyone with an understanding of the border system of the Tang dynasty would know that the northern part of the Tang dynasty had a very long border. The entire north belonged to the Baiting Protectorate and was under the control of Protector General in Sishun. But beyond that, the Baiting Protectorate also had many forts on the long border, all of which were guarded by important generals. These generals were not under the control of Baiting. They were only responsible for guarding their own routes and sending messages back to the Baiting Protectorate. If something happened, the Baiting Protectorate would immediately send reinforcements. From this, one could see that these forts were essentially small courts with their own political and military affairs. It was for this reason that the border generals of these forts had very high status. Coupled with the importance of the area, the generals guarding these forts were all of extraordinary strength, all of them titled generals at the very least. As a result, the princes of the palace had always tried to rope them in. This Zhang Yang was such a border fortress general. This letter looked ordinary, discussing some battles on the border. But Zhang Yang's words expressed his admiration for a prince, as well as his intention to side with him. After a few moments of silence, Li Heng turned to the second letter. But with just a glance, Li Heng's pupils constricted and his entire face paled. Unfilial son, look at that letter. Is it your notebook? The Holy Emperor's voice thundered through the hall. It truly is very similar to your son's. Li Heng straightened his body and calmly said, Fifth brother, you're truly a stubborn duck. You even dare to deny it in front of Imperial Father. Do you not even recognize your own handwriting? With a cold laugh, third Prince Li Ju took 2 steps forward, his face brimming with disdain. Fifth Prince, you'd better confess. Forming a clique for personal gain and colluding with the civil and military officials of the court is a serious crime. But lying in front of His Majesty is a crime of deceiving the Emperor. It's much more serious than forming a clique for personal gain. Why is your Highness still deceiving yourself and refusing to admit it. The third prince's teacher, Yao Zongping, said, "How can Li Heng admit to something he didn't do?" Li Heng sternly said, "Your Highness, you colluded with the fort patrolling General Zhang Yang. The two sides exchanging letters. This is already conclusive evidence. Even if you want to deny it, it's useless. Zhang Yang has already been relieved of his post by His Majesty. His Majesty has already given. His Majesty is actually giving you a chance." Thirdly, Kingsley had said, "I the prince and Prince Wang. Li Wang Prince, Hung. This Wang, Prince Wang, Hung, Prince, This was not a wise move. He had originally had a good impression of this newly ascended fifth prince, but now, the last shred of that impression was gone. Grand Tutor, there is no need to say more. We will deal with it." The sage emperor's voice was lofty and aloof, and there was not the slightest emotion on his face. "Unfilial son, you colluded with the border generals, and formed a clique for personal gain. There are letters as proof, and the evidence is clear. Since you are not willing to admit it, we will not force you. We ordered someone to search your study for this list. Do you recognize the handwriting?" Before he could finish speaking, whoosh! A third letter flew through the air like a sharp blade toward Li Heng. Li Heng stretched out his hands and caught the letter. In a flash, the mountainous energy on the letter vanished. Li Heng lowered his head, and saw one name after another on the letter. It was precisely the list of officials that he had given to Wang Chong for him to review and recruit. Zhua Honglin, Su Guosheng, Qi Haiqing, Wei Xiaoyu Cui Yi, Lu Jianjin Li Han, and even the Wei clans Wei Lan and Wei Jian. "Unfilial son, just what do you want to do?" With that final sentence, the Saint Emperor slammed his palm down, causing the entire hall to shake. All of the princes and teachers, even the Grand Preceptor and the Grand Tutors, looked on in shock, and didn't utter a single word. After serving at the Holy Emperor's side for so many years, the Grand Tutor and Grand Tutor were well aware that the moment this happened, the Holy Emperor would truly be enraged. If fifth Prince Li Heng still refused to admit it, what awaited him would be a punishment far more severe than forming a clique for personal gain. Not only would fifth Prince Li Heng be imprisoned, his future would also be ruined. He might not even be able to live as an ordinary person. Even his teacher and the attendants in the palace might be punished. In the worst-case scenario, Li Heng might lose his life. And what happened next would depend on what Li Heng said. "Imperial Father, this son knows that no matter what I say, you will not believe it. Moreover, Imperial Father said that this list was found in my study, and this son also knows that there is no mistake." Li Heng's voice resounded in everyone's ears. But this son can confess to Imperial Father that this list was not written by this son. I do not know who was framing this son, nor do I know how he managed to enter my study and place this list inside. But no matter how much thought he put into it, no matter how thorough his plan, even a wise man will make a mistake, leaving behind a loophole. Oh! Li Heng's words immediately attracted the attention of everyone in the hall. The solemn atmosphere in the hall began to ripple, and the princes on the two sides of the hall began to show a hint of unease. "Are you saying that this list and letter are forged?" The Holy Emperor's voice was pensive. Obviously, this was something that no one had expected. "Correct." Fifth Prince Li Heng straightened his back and raised his head to look at that dignified figure in the hall, his expression relaxed and unflinching. Buzz! The fifth prince's words immediately caused an uproar in the hall. Even the stern and unsmiling Grand Tutor and Grand Preceptor to the Holy Emperor's left and right glanced at each other, their stern faces beginning to show signs of loosening. Although the Holy Emperor could not have made a mistake, fifth Prince Li Heng's expression did not seem to be fake. Moreover, the princes of the imperial palace would often frame each other, something that had happened in every dynasty. In that instant, the Grand Tutor and the Grand Tutor both looked towards the third prince, Li Ju, who was standing outside the great hall. "Li Heng, you're lying. You dared to do it, but you don't dare to admit it." Li Ju's face instantly turned red. "Since you dared to do such a thing, why don't you dare to admit it? So all of this was Third Imperial Brother's doing, right?" Li Heng looked at Third Prince Li Ju. If he hadn't been clear at the start, the moment the third prince stepped forward, Li Heng was certain that the mastermind behind all of this had to be Third Prince Li Ju. Third Prince Li Ju's expression froze as he realized that he had misspoken, but he quickly began to sneer. Fifth brother, whatever you say now is useless. Everything will be decided by Imperial Father. As Li Ju spoke, he turned his head and gave a deep bow to the Holy Emperor. He wasn't worried about being exposed and being hated by Li Heng, but if the Holy Emperor mistakenly accused him of framing his brother, it would be no small matter. The Holy Emperor said nothing, not even glancing at Li Ju. His gaze remained fixed on the kneeling Li Heng. Li Ju's face reddened as he hurriedly retreated to the side and closed his mouth. Speak. The Holy Emperor only said 2 words, his voice neither loud nor soft, but they resounded clearly in everyone's ears, exuding a supreme majesty. Imperial Father, third brother framed me for colluding with fort patrolling General Zhang Yang. I have nothing to say, nor can I prove my own innocence. But third brother forged this list of colluding with the ministers of the court. If it were true, your son would admit it. But one's own cleverness can be the victim of one's own cleverness. No matter how meticulous it was, no matter how much effort was put into it, there was still a flaw. Li Heng's lips perked up into a confident smile. Li Heng, don't slander me. You colluded with the ministers of the court to draw up this list. What does it have to do with me? Li Ju was instantly infuriated that Li Heng was framing him. If not for the fact that the Holy Emperor was present, he would have already charged forward. A straightforward person doesn't do shady things. You know very well whether you did it or not. Li Heng raised his head to his elder brother and sneered. If it was in the past, perhaps he would restrain himself a little and admit it. But it was different this time. Since they harbored evil intentions and wanted to kill him, there was no need for him to give in at all. Continue. The Holy Emperor's voice was as tranquil as an ancient well, making it impossible to tell what he was thinking. Yes. Li Heng gave a deep bow, and then raised his head to continue. Court Ministers Wang Honglin, Minister of the Left Servant Shi Su Guosheng, Border Cavalry General Wu Yanqing, Minister of Justice Cui Yi, Transport Commissioner Wei Xiaoyu, Wei Lan and Wei Jian of the capital's Wei clan. Your son has nothing to say about these names. Alas, even the wisest person is bound to make a mistake. No matter how cautious the person who drew up this list was, they still made an irreparable mistake. The last name on this list is Secretary Chen Wenxiao. A few days ago, Teacher Su happened to be speaking to your son about the Secretary Chen. If your son remembers correctly, of the 24 officials of the Secretary Chen, there is no one called Chen Wenxiao. With these last words, Li Heng straightened his back, and his expression grew more confident. For a moment, everyone in the hall couldn't help but be captivated by his expression. The princes to his left and right, and the teachers of the princes couldn't help but widen their eyes, especially Third Prince Li Ju, whose face paled. The Secretary Chen was a minor official of the lower third rank. He did not have a very high status in the court, and did not have the authority to participate in politics. As a result, no one in the court would pay any attention to him, much less the Secretary Chen Wenxiao. But no matter how they paid attention, they would never have imagined that Chen Wenxiao didn't even exist on this list. If Chen Wenxiao didn't exist, then this list couldn't be trusted. On the other hand, someone was maliciously framing Li Heng. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.